See ya.
Bye.
Can you call the number?
I can. I probably need to call the meeting before the meeting, so tell me the number.
720-650-5050.
Or call in the police. 50. Should I hit this?
Yep.
Welcome to Join Me. Please enter your conference ID and press the pound key.
It's 240
Oh,
919 648.
You will now be placed into the conference.
Great.
Now can you hear us?
Yeah, we
Great,
can.
hi.
we've been placed.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hi.
How is everyone doing?
Good.
Great, thank you.
We only have a couple people, but it's 6 o'clock, so we're gonna get started. I will officially call our meeting to order. And then, do we need to formally go through all these things since they're on the agenda, the roll call and agenda approval?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you ready for roll call?
I am getting ready. My computer's.
So you're gonna skip to agenda
I
approval?
do have to make a comment that the roundtable discussion about the cold properties is scheduled for Monday at 1, which I now cannot go to, so I'll make that.
How do you know about that?
Because I was the only one that signed up for it.
Oh. Well,
So
I
maybe
would do it, I just didn't realize that.
Oh,
was
good.
like a
Okay.
particular
Well, I'll just
issue.
make
Well,
that announcement.
let's please just add it to the agenda so we
Yeah,
can
so,
share
That's
it
what
with
she's
everyone.
saying.
yes, so after you start.
Okay.
I'm ready whenever.
Oh, you're right, okay.
Okay, roll call.
Okay. Terry Whitaker.
Here.
Debbie Yates. Is she not coming? Does anyone know?
She said she's coming.
Rachel Tittle.
She said she's coming a little bit late.
Christina Costable.
Here.
Melinda Tan.
Here.
Daryl McEwen.
Here.
How about Marcia Rain?
I'm looking at my list. Marcia Rain.
Here.
And Claire Dixon.
She's absent. Okay. So approval of the agenda. Sounds like you have something you want to add, Melinda.
Oh, yes.
But you can add it at the end.
I think I'm going to add it at the end when we have more people here.
Okay, but if we have to officially say that we're adding something to the agenda.
Okay.
Just add the title. That'd be fine.
The CAPS representation at the round table discussion about Colton, Monday at 1 o'clock. Is that a mouthful?
But just capture table
Yes,
discussion.
there we go.
Okay, any public comment? There's no public, so we're moving on, and we can officially move into new business and updates and the creative placemaking master plan update. So take it away.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for coming. As we're waiting on a couple of people, perhaps we can get you logged into the Google form where we're going to solicit feedback in a few minutes. Dina, we sent the link for that over to you. Would you be able to share that with the CAPS committee?
Is it by email?
Yes.
Is there Wi-Fi here?
There is Town Superior Guest.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Thanks.
It should.
Debbie's here. All right, I'm forwarding the email to everybody.
So this is a link to a Google form, and in the form are a series of questions. Essentially, you'll be ranking the different ideas we're putting forward, and we felt this would be the most efficient and democratic way to do that. And we will get into the specifics when we reach that part of it, but as people are just sitting down, this seems like a useful way to begin. So once you've all logged in, please let us know.
So let's do
I sent everyone an email. You can get the link.
So you can just stay on the first page right now.
It'll come up.
Okay.
There we go. Oops, sorry. So that'll take a minute to come up, but then you'll see it up here.
Is it the PDF?
No, I just sent it this second, so it should be a new email.
Says we need permission.
We need permission.
I don't even have the email yet.
It says everyone needs permission, the ones that got on so far.
Okay. Sherry is just checking on that.
You're good.
I haven't got, oh, there, no.
And
There
then
we
she
go.
said she sent it to, do you have your email connected up here? Yeah. Okay, so yeah, just go in your email and then it should be.
Okay, try again.
Hi, just refreshing the page and let me know if that works.
Oh, this one, yeah. So go to your inbox.
Yeah, we're good.
There you go.
Great, and we're just going to share our screen.
Okay, so I need permission.
Just refresh.
And then
So Dina just sent us
Yes.
links to our email and a link to our Google.
Okay,
You're good, yeah?
I'm good.
so we hit next.
Dina, we've asked to share our screen and we need your approval.
I don't need mine to
Is
bring
this
over
one
my
I guess?
laptop.
Do I?
Great, got it.
They said
Okay,
thank you.
requested that you bring a laptop or an iPhone.
Well,
Yeah.
I've got it here.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's good.
Okay,
yeah, that works.
That's what everybody.
and because I printed up all 68 pages.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, what in the heck? So I have the whole thing right here. And you'll be going to
Okay,
my working.
the cover page of the presentation now.
Yes.
Okay, can you see us adjust that?
Can you say that again?
Are you able to see us as well as the presentation?
You're very little,
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
little
but yes.
circle on the right.
Yeah.
Okay. Alright. Okay, so thank you so much for joining today. We have a lot to cover. And so this is the hopefully next 2 hours, though we are prepared for it to go a little bit longer. So we'd like to start by just getting CAP's decision regarding the final public engagement activity in December. Then we're going to quickly review the goals and principles for this plan, present an overarching narrative and request some feedback on that, provide a brief summary of the engagement results, look at strategic locations for creative placemaking in Superior, and then the meat of it is really in the conceptual idea review. Then a very brief funding mechanism discussion, preliminary budget discussion, if there's time, a draft policy discussion, and then any other business to wrap up. Does anybody have any questions or comments around the agenda?
Nope, it's fine.
Okay. So over the last few months, we've done a whole bunch of pretty fun and creative engagement activities. And now we'd like to organize one for early December. And at the previous meeting, we talked about whether that would be something potentially with Skate with Santa or the following day at Colton Road. And I understand there's been some back and forth about that. So it would be great if we could confirm that right now.
Confirm, we haven't actually had we haven't had a chance to discuss that as a committee. I mean, we don't do discussion over emails, it just doesn't work. So we found out that, some of us found out at a meeting that Dina's unavailable for Sunday, and you are wanting to do Skate with Santa, but I don't know, I would actually like you to tell us what that's gonna look like, so we have an idea of whether Skate with Santa works or whether or not we really do want to pursue some other option.
Sure. So building on what we discussed at the last meeting, what we intend is to have a series of boards that are highlighting key aspects of the plan to share with the public. That will include the conceptual ideas, that will include elements around the economics of the plan and where budget could be going, strategic locations for it. And I mean, those will be the key pieces, but as we develop it, there may be a few additional pieces added. The purpose of this engagement is primarily to have, to present to the public and have them reflect on what's going on. In the ideal setting, we are in a location where the public is already going to be, so there are a few options for that. That could be, setting up somewhere very close to a busy shopping location at Marketplace. That could be Skate with Santa, or if there's something that you're confident is going to draw in a number of people, then we could have our own event. In preliminary discussions, or in the follow-up discussions that we had with Dina earlier this week, we understood the interest that CAPS had in having some sort of event, and then also understood some of the challenges around doing it on the Sunday. So one option could be to have a CAPS event on the Friday night, and then myself and perhaps attend Skate with Santa with the boards again on the Saturday to ensure that we're getting a good response and to make sure that this plan is seen by quite a few people before it is finalized or draft finalized to present back to the board again at the end of January. And yeah, so there are a couple of different options of what that looks like. And if we were doing two events, that would be a scope change. But we are happy to accommodate, your interests and needs, and then we'll make recommendations on how we think it is best to reach a large share of the public.
So where do you propose to set up at Skate with Santa?
I talked with the staff
Either
about that, Mitchell. Mitchell, can you hear me? Yeah, I talked with staff about that because I've never been there. And they said that there's an area where there's the line with Santa Claus gets really long. And so it might be not necessarily you have one table, but maybe you're roaming and you can go up and down the line talking to people, or you can do a table and roaming, that kind of thing. So that's the question I asked them today at a staff meeting in case this question was asked tonight.
So where would a series of boards get set up?
Near the Santa Claus picture taking
Is there
area.
really actually room over there?
Well, that's what I was told, so I haven't been there. I asked the very same question, and that's what they told me.
Well, having been to Skate with Santa and a number of times, and the hard thing, Mitchell, is that it's an hour and a half, at least unless they changed it. You have young parents with predominantly young kids, and you're in the building, you're putting on the skates, you're taking off their coats, you're putting on skates on little kids, they're running around like crazy, Santa Claus is there. I think it's gonna be, well, first of all, really hard to wrangle anybody, especially those parents, and it's gonna be a predominant demographic of young parents and little kids, probably ages, 3 to 10 maybe? For those of us who've been, I mean, that's probably the demographic. So you're only targeting at Skate with Santa a very small part of town, and it is truly a crazy time. I mean, if you think about little kids and they're skating and seeing Santa and stuff, now it could be doable if there was an area in the sports stable that was a little bit quieter and we really promoted it and maybe had an interesting draw to bring in other demographics like couples that don't have kids in the town center. What about bringing in an older demographic, that kind of thing? I just think that having been there, there are some issues that if you do it with Skate with Santa, that you're going to have to really kind of think about and work out. I don't know.
Is there a lobby on the first floor? I've never been there either. So
there is an open space.
Catch people coming and going, and then still market it to the masses to come separately, not with Skate with Santa.
Right. If you had some really cool thing that they would be enticed to come, and we promoted it, come and
Sure.
Yeah, but do we have the ability to be in the lobby? I don't know. I mean, they've never set up in the lobby before, because there's other activities that are going on in the.
Right, sports table is so huge, Mitchell, that there are teams coming in, there's soccer clubs coming in, lacrosse, whatever it might be. I don't know, Kevin, have you been?
Yeah, I think the faces I'm reading around the rooms and piggybacking on Skate with Santa, it's tough, right? I think a lot of us are parents, and it's a tough situation when you're trying to put skates on a kid, and there's a lot of there's just tears. You're just not in the mood to give anybody.
Tears.
Right? It's hard. I mean, it's so great. I mean, I wish it was a wonderful moment, but,
That sounds stressful.
you know, it
I
is.
won't do it.
Debbie did mention
You won't do
Debbie did mention the noise
Yeah.
level, but believe me, it's shouting level.
Yeah,
And
so,
feel-
but I do
you
think,
can't-
so Mitchell's guidance, what I just heard is piggyback on something else, or have some event. So, we are getting parents, and so just thinking here, and I don't want to, it's not, I try not to give ideas, but what if it was Brunelleschi's, I always want to say Brunelleschi's, you know, I think they might appreciate, and I don't know, maybe somebody's rented it out that day, but what if it was Brunelleschi's roughly at the same time, and it was in the restaurant area, and then people could go and buy a glass of wine, so Brunelleschi's might be thrilled with having an event that brought 50 people. Now, I don't know if they'll allow us to do that, but,
What do you mean allow? I mean,
well, effectively, you're reserving.
you're reserving it for an event at Brunelleschi's.
Right, without.
And generating a guarantee of income or something.
Yeah, we don't want to necessarily rent it or pay for it, right? I mean, maybe we could give some nominal $250 guarantee or something, but we don't want to
Right.
buy beers for the town. That would be, well, what we want to do and what we can do are different things like that. But anyway, but that's an idea. So I heard from Mitchell, piggyback on something else. Skate with Santa, just read the room. It sounds like you guys should just kill it now and then talk about other ideas.
I agree. It needs to be Brunelleschi's on Saturday afternoon. And again, only because I've been to Skate in Santa numerous times with my grandkids, and it is like, you know, it just, you're multitasking in many different ways. And Mitchell said he wants to present and reflect. And there is no reflection when you're Skate with Santa to get people to really think about what you're trying to do.
You're trying to survive.
You're trying to survive. I mean, maybe that's only because I take my grandkids, so it's a whole different world, but, and what about Friday night, too? I mean, you could.
Well, my idea with the Skate with Santa is, I like the Brunelleschi's because, and hopefully we have marketed the event so that the parents know that it's, after the tiers, come upstairs, right? We'll have hot chocolates, for the kids, stay a few minutes, to capture that demographic and then market, right? Then we're marketing to the whole town. So hopefully we will woo the singles or the older people who will already be at Brunelleschi's.
And you could have 60 to 70, I'd say, there in the back, in that area. You'd commingle in the bar, but we would sort of kind of rope it off, like the Clint's, whatever he calls it.
State of Superior.
Right, like
So-
that area.
Yeah.
Are you envisioning that it would be parallel with Skate with Santa or after Skate with Santa?
Parallel, so we're catching people coming and going, so parents, so we can be downstairs or have signs downstairs that say, parents, after Skate with Santa, join Town of Superior, upstairs for your hot defrosting
Well,
beverage,
they're offering
whatever.
hot cocoa downstairs, so.
So we'll work with the event to figure out how we can supplement.
And what's the draw to come upstairs and engage?
Well, that's what we'll have to figure out in the, well, it's
And
still going to
is
be a community
Brunelleschi's
engagement.
open to, what does it cost? And are they
But that's
That
what the
question,
subcommittee needs to
about what is the draw, is something that we should consider regardless of how we host this event. So there are numerous options, and we can conduct this in a number of ways. It could be one event, it could be two, but we recognize that this is the holiday season, and so we do have a lot of competition. So making it convenient is certainly one way to reduce the barrier to participation.
Right. It's pretty, I mean, you got to admit, that's pretty convenient, right? I mean, you're there, you're past the tiers, mom's going to go upstairs, have a glass of wine.
Yeah, and
it's
it's a completely different event
Right,
than what
it's a different-
we previously
right.
discussed, but.
And we could talk about it in our
Yeah.
infamous brainstorming way, of some way that if you're a parent and your kid's done Skate with Santa, maybe have an activity that kids in that, right outside Brunelleschi's or something, or maybe there's something that could be
Like
What will they
coloring
do
or
with their-
something? 'Cause
yeah.
I was gonna say, I would not go to it,
No.
because my kid would not, after an event.
Yeah,
I don't know
they're
if that's
worn
my
out.
kids, but yeah.
And they want to go.
But yeah, something, if they maybe had something to do for a bit, because it's hard to reflect if you're
If you have
exhausted or
little
if they're
kids
hungry.
and they're upset and they're hungry.
Right, so the other choice I think you guys talked about is a Friday night event.
All right.
I would note that the most important thing to decide here is just confirming we are doing it sometime between Friday and Sunday. And because we only have an opportunity to make these decisions once a month, that will let us at least lock it in. We set aside these dates, but that will mean that I can book flights to come down, and then the specifics could be ironed out over the next couple of weeks, if it's possible, recognizing how the bylaws of committees work. Now, we've requested to meet with you again on November 14th at a midterm meeting, and so perhaps we could make final decisions at that time as well.
Tina, have you been to the sports table at all? Have you been to Brunelleschi's, we're talking
Oh, yeah, when we were officed out of there, I spent a
Right,
lot of
yeah.
time over there
So what do you think about that back area there?
in Brunelleschi's.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I love that area. I think it could be great. I think it'll be interesting. Maybe we can do some sort of art installation between, in the hallways to get people there, like a scavenger hunt or something. I mean, we just have to figure out how to draw people up there, and if it's with us, being the chain of people directing people, or is it a fun activity, that kind of thing.
So, and if you're,
Shots of whiskey for dressed out parents as they go up the stairs.
and if you're working Skate with Santa, then that means that we're on deck to do all of it, right?
Well, I don't know what it means for me to be working at Skate with Santa yet. I'm still kind of waiting to hear from the chamber for my marching orders, since it is a chamber event, but I will be in the area. Yes.
And if you can, okay, so you go into the lobby at sports table, is there ever an area where you could do with little kids and have them have something fun to do for just even 30 minutes?
Although there is that TV, there's the.
You can put in like,
the scavenger
Rudolph the
hunt's a cool
Red-Nosed
idea.
Reindeer,
Yeah, I like that.
but your parents are gonna have to be with them, so you'd have to get volunteers or Slick or somebody
Yeah,
like that.
I mean, wouldn't it be cool if you could get one of the turf fields and do a
That would be-
soccer
that would be awesome.
thing? Or
Yeah.
So there's,
That would be cool.
wherever your subcommittee is, I mean, what I'd recommend, because I know you guys have a ton on the agenda, I think Mitchell's made a great point to say, the decision today needs to be locked down the dates. And then maybe choice A, which is, let's do it at Brunelleschi's, figure out some type of overflow for the kids. And then is there an option B in the event that Brunelleschi's has a wedding that day? Well, we just don't know.
Well, maybe it's Friday night, so if he books so that he could be here for the Friday night event, and then Saturday, then also piggyback on Skate with Santa, so do Friday night Skate with Santa, or the optimal would be something corresponding with Skate with Santa on Saturday.
Sounds good. Worst case scenario is we do something Friday night. And our original idea was the Pinball Blizzard at 1500 Colton, which would bring in more teens and, we do a lot of cool stuff. Now we can pare that way back if we needed to do it on a Friday night. You think we could do it, if we had to?
Okay. Does everybody feel like that's the best option for getting public engagement? I'm not thrilled with I think if we can come up with something other than Skate with Santa, that would be fantastic. I just don't think there's the quiet and the space for it, but it is a public event that would capture people and
There's also a lot of non-Superior residents who come to Skate with Santa.
And we don't, that
Which is
hasn't
fine.
really been a problem.
We've worked around that and other things, so.
Terry, are you thinking, does that feel okay? The idea of a Friday night event, or?
I prefer the Friday night event over Skate with Santa, but then I don't have children. I've never been. I don't have any clue what it's like. I just think if we want to get the feedback, that we really need to have it almost separate.
But if we did it Friday night, if we were interested in changing the scope and paying them more, you could do Skate with Santa too, so you could capture two audiences.
True. I just, from what I'm hearing though, it sounds to me like Skate with Santa is a zoo.
In that particular area, between when you walk in, get your skates, and to the rink, it's a disaster. It's just,
Yeah, really, it's so hard to describe, but there is really no other way to view it. I mean, you literally have 5-year-old kids, and the poor people at Sports Stable are trying to get all the skates. So maybe we can discuss and see if we can come up with even a Friday. Can you do Friday night? I know you said evenings, but.
Friday's tough that day. I guess it just depends on what you guys need from me. Staff are supposed to have that day and night off.
Friday and Friday night?
Yeah, it's already.
Okay.
It's our holiday party.
Okay.
So this Friday would be tough for me. Saturday is just more of a guarantee, and Sunday, I just don't really like to work Sundays if I possibly can.
Oh, I
Is Skate
totally
with
get
Santa
that.
on Saturdays?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's 1 to 2:30? 2 to
It's
3:30?
actually 3 to 5 this year, or yeah,
Okay.
let me look at their website.
That's okay.
But you're right, it's usually only about an hour and a half.
About an hour and a
They
half.
don't-
Well, what about the possibility of, since it's 3 to 5, or 3:30 to 5, or 3 to
Yeah,
4:30,
3 to 5.
whatever it is,
3 to 5.
doing something, have Mitchell try to see what he can get through that event, and then do something at Brunelleschi's later, like at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock or something like that. Could we market that? It's all on the same day.
Well, I think, yes, I think that it sounds like that weekend will work, whether it's Friday and we have to do it all, Saturday with some possible help, and Sunday is out, so.
Okay,
Okay?
they were spinning our
Good.
wheels
Yeah.
until we even get answers if Brunelleschi's is a possibility.
Yeah.
So we've got to get a subcommittee together and work with Dina and get some details.
That sounds good. And I can check in with Dina after just on sort of bylaws around this, but, you know, to make most efficient use of resources, if there was an event on the Friday night, I'll be there and we'll have all our materials set anyway. And if we decided, look, we didn't get quite the response that we needed, on very short notice, I could then do the event on Saturday. So as long as it is okay with you and with the sort of bylaws of the committee as well as the town to, on very short notice, add that or make that scope change to then do an event on the Saturday, that flexibility isn't an issue for us if we decided that was necessary.
I think Friday's off. Staff's not working, this committee can't do this without support from staff. That's not fair. So Friday's off, right? It's scheduled, it's done. Friday's a non-starter.
Yeah, I just found out today that that's our
Yeah,
annual
it's just a
holiday
non-starter.
party.
Okay, so we'll figure out.
So no
a
Friday.
Saturday.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's
So it's
Saturday.
We have to do Saturday.
Well, yeah, all right, well, that narrows it down.
Okay?
We'll do the best we can.
Don't spend
Or a
on it.
different weekend. I mean, if you're not going to
Well,
do
that
Skate
wasn't
with
a
Santa.
possibility in the email that you sent. It said those were the dates, Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday. So
I didn't send any dates
Yeah, they were-
that I said were required.
Not required, that was the,
What
those
days are
were
you
his
talking
choices.
about, actually?
Is this the
Oh, no, those were his choices, just
Those were his first.
Do you
for
know
that
which days?
weekend.
Which
Yeah.
December 6th, something?
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, or 7th,
I
it must be
see.
the
Yeah,
7th
somewhere
if it's
around
a
there.
Saturday, yeah.
Mitchell,
So I assume that was the
6th
only
is
weekend.
Friday.
is that the only weekend that you're available
That's
between
First Fridays
December
anyways on the
1st
6th, so you're
and
gonna lose other people. here.
January, whenever you need the info by?
It'd be good to do it Friday. First Friday.
So the other weekend we can do it is the final weekend of November, which I think is November 30th, December 1st.
Right, and that's our
That one will work.
Thanksgiving weekend, so are there any weekends later in December or early in January?
We really don't recommend going later in December with the holidays. It only gets harder to get people. Are already going to be really busy.
Okay.
I mean, early January we could work with. I guess the weekend of the 4th, 5th, or I mean sometime around the 4th, 5th, or that following week, sometime between the 6th and the 11th would also work.
January?
Yeah, I mean, it just, I think that it's
Right.
important to
I
know
don't
that
think that's-
we're not in a serious rush. There's no reason in particular we have to do the weekend of Escape with Santa. Right, Mitchell? I mean, that was just because we delayed the presentation to the board to November 18th, right? That's the only reason we were picking Escape with Santa as a possibility.
Yeah, we had, I believe, discussed that these were strategic times to try and reach people. As is, we look to be presenting the draft final plan to the Board of Trustees on January 28th. With the presentation on the 18th of November, we'll need a bit of time to prepare or update our material after that, which is why that weekend right after that isn't a possibility, so the 23rd to 24th. So then if the following weekend is Thanksgiving, then we have Skate with Santa that weekend. After that, it's becoming really close to Christmas. And then early January, sometime approximately between the 4th and 11th or 12th is a possibility as well, recognizing that we would be looking at what is available to change between then and the draft presentation on the 28th. And for that, I would just need to know when we need to have the material ready to present to the board if we are presenting on the 28th.
Well, I would say,
But hopefully we can manage a couple of dates, and both of those options are available, but recognizing that decision-making within CAPS occurs once a month, it is helpful to lock that down.
What were the weekends in January? What was the Saturday in January?
the 5th and
Well, the
6th.
4th is still winter
Oh, the
break.
kids
Yeah,
don't go
that's
back to
PBSD.
school until
Because a lot of people are
7.
traveling. then
Yeah, I won't be here.
Yeah.
So it would have to be the 11th.
And that's too late, right, Mitchell?
Well, we could do it sometime, and then also in January, I think we could do weekdays again as well. I mean, that's with your insight on how people would respond to a weeknight event. But sometime during the week of January 6th up to the 11th would likely work as well.
Well, so one thing we did is we pushed the presentation to the board, but we didn't push the end date of the project. So there's no reason we can't push the end date of the project to accommodate getting public input. So I just, think I want you to keep that in mind.
So that affects us how? Or what flexibility does that give us?
Being able to have more options than Skate with Santa to do public input.
I mean, it would be great, I guess, if we could do Pinball Blizzard like January 11th, for instance, and then make it a really big winter event kind of thing, because, January's dull and boring and cold, but then again, we don't want, Mitchell stressed out over the whole thing either. So I think that's really more of a Board of Trustees decision, Mitchell decision. Daryl, you have any thoughts on the 11th?
Well, my preference is to have it before the holidays. I mean,
Oh, that's right, because you want it to be holiday themed.
Well, no, not even the theme. It's there's 2 weeks plus 2 days of winter break for kids. And I can't imagine that I would have a lot of time or flexibility to be working on an event. And so then it's the only time we have is that last week before the 11th. So, it just that doesn't seem like it fits very well for me personally. Other people have a lot of time, then that's fine.
Well, why don't we?
I would just note that in early January, there is the risk of event fatigue. Everybody's had a busy December, and it can be a bit tricky to get folks out. This obviously has a different lens than a lot of the festivities people have participated in before Christmas, but it is just something to keep in mind, and it might change the nature of what we would try and do if we did something in January. Then I think a weeknight becomes more palatable than before Christmas.
Kevin, you have kids in school.
Yeah, I think,
Weeknights
I guess I want to be careful. I feel like I'm doing too much talking tonight. probably more talking tonight than I have combined. I think we're lucky to have Mitchell as a consultant. He's given you guys some pretty clear direction. Couple it with an event sooner rather than later.
I think
then
we
is
can
that-
make Skate with Santa work. We
Yeah,
have to
just
figure
overlap it
out.
somehow.
You guys, you're
Do
second guessing
something
yourselves,
to,
right?
You
Right.
know, we can bring in the lantern
Maybe
later,
we
maybe
could get
have her,
them with the displays right coming in at Sticks or something.
yeah, and what if
It's right
we
there on the
hire
first
somebody
floor.
to do the conference room with lantern making or something that is engaging to kids, and then parents can go and have a, you know,
Glass of wine or
cooling
beer
off
or
glass of
something.
wine. But, you know, again, it all sort of hinges on Brunelleschi's being available.
And it actually is, like, if you have a partner with you, you can send them down with the kids, and then you could, like, you know.
And then you could trade.
Right, yeah.
Or you could trade off like at Disney.
So that's actually
We
maybe
did do
a
the
good
horse
thing.
aside for something for the committee to think about other events, and Dina will give you guys the budget for it, but we did do the horse-drawn wagon for the,
Oh, the Count the Lights.
for the Count the Lights, which
Yeah.
was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that was really fun. My grandkids thought that was the greatest thing ever.
Right, so even if you don't get on it, because the lines are crazy, but even to sort of, to pull up and see it, it's something that is pretty
Well,
cool.
and that's something to think about, because last year they had Count the Lights, or not last year, the year before, they had Count the Lights and Skate with Santa on the same day.
On the same day.
You know, you went to Skate with Santa, and then you came over to Count the Lights, and so,
And the only reason they didn't do it last year is because Heather had just left the chamber and the.
Oh, it was just too much.
The chamber needed a lot of help, so
And Katie
staff did
left
that
it.
instead.
And Katie left us too.
Yeah, well, she had been gone for months already.
no, she left in there.
But that's kind of a cool idea, actually.
Yeah, so I don't want to, so let your committee
Yeah.
think about it, but, you know, figure out which budget is.
So does everybody agree that that date works best, and we'll figure out
We'll
something
figure out what
that
I
we're
do.
gonna do.
will be fun and
No, I-
engaging?
Well, we had for the Pinball Blizzard, when we were talking about actually trying to put together the budget numbers, which were diverted because of the whole master plan, but weren't we talking $5,000 or
It
something
seems like
like
there's
that?
something
So
in that range. that we
I think there's something in that range where we could do some kind of cool stuff, either with or after Skate with Santa.
And that's just a fun idea we can
Yeah.
just keep on the docket for years, you
Yeah,
know, to come.
absolutely.
So I
Okay.
think, I am totally behind the, doing the event with Skate with Santa. I think we can put our heads together, come up with something really fun, and.
On Saturday
And
afternoon.
capitalize on the marketing, you
Yep.
know, to get people there. So I like that too.
Okay, all right, everybody good with that, Terry? Rachel? Okay.
Okay. Book your tickets.
Sorry, that was a long conversation. We're on page 2.
Oh, page 2. Okay, yeah.
Well, but we're moving, that's good. Okay, then if everybody is in agreement, we will be preparing for those dates, and we can figure out the specifics of what that looks like over the next little while. And I just want to flag right now, just to see if you've had any, or if you've been aware, that we're suggesting to have a meeting with you on November 14th as the midterm meeting. Has that come up?
Not quite yet. We were talking about the 14th and 21st, and then when you said you would like to do the 14th, tonight is the night to decide that.
I think we had already
Okay.
sort of tentatively discussed the 14th being, because isn't that our mid-month date anyway?
Right.
So
Yeah, I
we
have it
would
on my
be-
calendar.
Yeah, I thought we had pretty much nailed that date down, so.
Is that here at 6 then?
Yeah, it would be here, yeah. Does anyone have a problem with the 14th?
Well, I do, but it's
Yeah,
irrelevant.
Teresa, right?
If we did it earlier, I wouldn't be here, but the 14th is fine for me.
Why is that relevant?
Well, it doesn't matter if I'm here or not here, so I won't be here on the 14th.
Oh, you're,
I'm cruising with Disney.
your 21st wouldn't matter either, right?
Right.
Yeah, so neither one works for you. Okay. All right, so
Okay.
that date's settled.
Great. That'll give us a chance to get into some of the specifics around what we'll do, you know, on the December 7, 8 weekend. But also really importantly, it's a chance for us to provide feedback and share the next steps that we've developed based on what we hear tonight and what we've then developed based on that. And the date is quite strategic because we'll be presenting to the Board of Trustees on the 18th. So we have a chance to get any additional thoughts from you prior to that, which I think is valuable. So that's great. Okay, slide 4. So when we started, we crafted the overarching goal to develop a creative placemaking master plan that establishes a common vision for the role of arts, culture, and creativity to guide placemaking in Superior for the next 5 years. In doing so, Happy City had proposed the following goals for the process. Now is to develop a clear understanding of how existing stakeholders, policies, and assets can be leveraged to strengthen creative placemaking in Superior. And we've gone about that through extended time on the site, an array of interviews, as well as numerous avenues of public engagement. Sought to identify elements of Superior's identity, context, and heritage to celebrate through creative placemaking. Establish community buy-in to support the plan and bring it to life, and so that's where all of the engagement becomes really important. Listening to you, because you'll be among the strongest champions and ambassadors for this plan, is really important. Then identify sites, locations, and routes for potential creative placemaking activities, and a lot of the public engagement has fed into that. Use creative placemaking to support economic activity in Superior, and then recommend funding mechanisms to support Superior's creative sector. And go through the process. This is what we have been developing and will continue to develop. And tonight we'll be focusing on the concept ideas. And then drawn from the goals that CAPS had crafted in the spring and that were included in the RFP, we have these here. And I'll just note that on the left-hand side, you see these symbols, which I think you saw also in the document you received earlier this week. And so the symbols help to correspond with the concept ideas we'll be presenting shortly that help to say, well, we think that by doing this, you're fulfilling this goal that you had set. And so the goals are to arts, culture, and creativity can create a sense of place, community identity, and contribute to town branding. And we've got that lovely palette to highlight that. The clock below it is to signify that identify key, near, and long-term actions to create opportunities to enliven and enhance public spaces throughout Superior with arts and cultural activities. We've got explore and demonstrate how creative placemaking can support and enhance the activities of all town programs. And we've struck out the all simply because there are numerous town programs, if we consider them in the broadest sense, that are not really fitting into this. So, snow removal is probably not something that we're going to be able to enhance through placemaking. But we've been cognizant of the ones that we think we can do.
We could paint the snow cloud.
That's what Rachel just said.
Is that what you said?
We can paint this too. Yeah, exactly.
No.
We get some nice things.
Oh, no, that's like a creative thread we don't want. Mitchell's going, oh my gosh, they're going to paint the snowplows.
We can get some really nice snowplows. We might blow our creative placemaking budget, but they'll be really nice. Lots of people are going to use them in the summer as well. And then we have this shape, as it were, that is signifying to shape a vibrant public art program, including outlining policies and procedures. And then there was assessing the public art collection for gaps and opportunities. And while we certainly have paid attention to what is included, I think we've gone broader than that. So we've recommended striking that section out as we're looking for gaps and opportunities, or primarily opportunities that either build on or are beyond what is there already. Then we have the magnifying glass to investigate, and originally says, and craft guidelines for art in private developments. And craft guidelines seems extremely difficult depending on how far we want to take that. So, there could be policy guidance about where the town might do stuff in private developments. But in terms of saying to Downtown Superior what they can and can't do within the town placemaking piece, has not been something that we've received tremendously positive input from Downtown Superior and Marketplace about. And I'll note that we have reached out to Rock Creek Village a number of times and haven't heard back from them. So we've been having positive discussion with Brixmore, as well as Bill Jenks and Downtown Superior. So those ones, we know where they stand and where their interests are, and they've been quite receptive to the ideas. So I think on the guideline side, if there was a point where the town wants to say what they would be willing to contribute, that's about the only part of the guidelines we might be able to do in these large private developments.
Okay, so so let me back up a sentence. So Ranch Capital and maybe Brixmor are at least somewhat receptive to putting art, because part of the downtown Superior development was all the art and that kind of stuff. So do you cover that later? This investigate?
The plan that we're creating is for public land.
Okay.
And we have things that come to the edge of these developments, but these developments are privately owned. And I think it's a kind of double-sided piece where there's concern about these private actors having to commit to additional things that they haven't already committed to regarding public art, recognizing that especially Downtown Superior has a plan to include arts and culture within the downtown. They recognize the value of that, but they've been working on that independently, and they have their signage pieces and banners and some of the placemaking things that they've been considering independent of this process. And Marketplace is interested, and I think they would like to see some concrete examples of what might go on and could be receptive to it. And then a question would be, who would be funding that? But within the plan that we're discussing, what our recommendations are for public land that comes up to the edges of these developments throughout town.
Right, in addition to that, CAPS's subcommittee is developing a public art, as you know, public art management plan / handbook. We're still working on the title. And as a sister document to that, we will develop guidelines, if you will, for art and private development. And so it will really, at this point, cover the developers who have committed to doing art and what the overview is and the procedure for their fulfillment of their commitment. And that is a document that will be given to Happy City to take a look at, along with the public art guidelines that the subcommittee is working on. So that's kind of the end of the scope that Happy City has. So I think that's why he has crossed out the text on that last slide where it says create guidelines, because we're doing that in-house.
Okay.
Craft guidelines, right there, last line.
Okay. And it partners with that fulfillment of commitment.
Right.
And that would be like the Ranch Capital downtown.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and Superior Shores, for example.
Right.
It'll oversee what that procedure is.
Great, and yeah, I mean, I think the nice description is that we have interest, and it's simply about ensuring that it, from private actors, and it falls, the key thing is that it falls within their existing commitments rather than add additional pieces to it. The additional goals are to recommend new funding opportunities and ways to leverage resources, uncover new partnerships to enhance the delivery of events and arts activities, assess event activity in town and nearby, and recommend ways to increase it. And we cross out offered by all organizations, as this is an extremely broad definition, and especially if we're looking beyond Superior, this can be interpreted in a number of ways. So we recommended to make it more concise and narrow to Superior and the central activities that, I mean, I think we've covered it pretty well, but want to make sure that everybody's on the same page around that. We want to establish, so cross out tools to measure, and so we said establish measures of success to tell the story of our impact. So this is about metrics of success, rather than creating a toolkit of measures, as this can get to be quite a large task in itself, whereas measures can be achieved with, I think, relative ease and fit within the capacity and budgets of the town, as it would be required to then eventually conduct these measures. And so we recommend to narrow that definition slightly, where I think you'll be getting what you want to know if these events are successful and whether creative placemaking is having an impact in Superior without tremendous cost or additional effort from staff to fulfill that. And then uncover ways to encourage and support the creative economy and creative entrepreneurs. And then we recommend the addition of one more goal, which is to identify opportunities to support social connection among residents and visitors of all ages. And so that wasn't in the initial set of goals, but from what we hear and understand from Superior, this seems like an important one to highlight throughout the plan.
That's actually pretty cool, Mitchell, because when I read through it and made my notes, that was like the one thing in all this that really pounced out, was that support social connection among residents. So pretty cool that you added that in.
Oh, well, thank you. And I mean, we're also, made the principles, and the principles are based on our understanding of Superior, as well as the more than a decade of evidence that Happy City has collected around well-being in towns and cities. And this social connection piece is so important, and that came through in all of the activities conducted in Superior as well. And just as a recap, the principles that were crafted to guide this plan and that we've been using when thinking about what these concepts, ideas might look like, are sociability, to promote positive social interaction and facilitate trust-building encounters among the array of Superior residents. And again, you'll see these symbols on the left, which we've used to the plans. And in the document that we prepared for you, that was only on the high-level plans, but in what we're presenting tonight, we've done that for every single action. And I'm pretty tired of talking, so Sherry, do you want to use these principles?
Sure, Mitchell. So starting with disability already, then we have joy, maximize opportunities for joy, comfort, and satisfaction, minimize discomfort and frustration. Then we have health, enable, encourage, and promote well-being, healthy lifestyle choices, and active mobility. And equity, ensure that placemaking initiatives and public spaces are open to the diversity of Superior's people and that the outcomes welcome and serve all residents and visitors. Next, we have ease, ensure safe environments that give people a strong sense of control, comfort, and capacity to get involved. And then moving on to resilience, which create a legacy of ecologically, economically, and culturally sustainable interventions and programs that enable Superior to thrive over the long term. And lastly, we have meaning and belonging, craft a unified town identity, and support individual and community efforts to build attachment, ownership, and pride of place. So these should be familiar to mostly all of you at this point. They were a big part of the workshop that we did in July.
And we've kept them in mind as we craft the ideas and recommendations for what we think are most important to Superior. And so the next piece that we had created was the plan will have a title. And we think that the title can be something of an elevator pitch at the same time. And so we've come up with this one-line narrative, which is creative by nature. And this isn't to be confused with the town slogan, but this is a way of very concisely describing what the plan aims to achieve. And it is the high-level descriptor that we think helps illustrate what we've heard from the town, what we'd like to achieve, and also, in a way, captures the essence of Superior. So did anyone have any thoughts or comments on this?
Well, I actually had to do Google searches on this because when I went through and read this, I'm like, what in the heck is that? We want to make sure that when we're talking about cultural arts and creative placemaking, that what we say in that elevator pitch or tagline is something that people immediately understand. And I didn't understand this, so if I had to look it up, is it simple enough that people are going to get that? I don't know.
I actually really liked it.
I mean, I like it now that I understand what.
I think if you think about Superior and everybody talks about our parks and our trails and our nature, and that in itself is creativity, but then we want to enhance it with some other things, and so I really liked it.
I love it.
Yeah, now that I know what it is.
I like it.
Just, the creative by nature. I just couldn't figure out what you were trying to do.
I had a hard time picking out the second piece.
Yeah, I'm working
on culture, community. Yeah, I had a hard time with that.
Yeah.
But this really makes me happy.
Love it. I think it's exactly what
Creative by nature.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially
and in doing a review of other town slogans and activities, we note that the town of Spokane and Washington, their tourism board uses this as a tagline. We think that that doesn't preclude Superior from using it. You're a number of states over. It's not the town slogan there either, and they don't own this statement. So at the very least, as a title for the plan, there is no issue. I don't think this would lead to changing the town slogan or anything like that, but just so you're aware that there is this other town that has it. But as a title for the plan and as a way to describe it, I think you're in a pretty strong position for it.
And what, do you have a subtitle?
Those are the next.
So these are the
Next
three
page,
options.
okay.
And I mean, so let's start with the bottom. The most basic one, which is the Creative by Nature Superior Creative Placemaking Master Plan. And so that way it's extremely clear. There's no question of what we're trying to do. For the rest of them, we would use a two-part title, and then on the cover of the document and on every page in the footer, it would say Superior Creative Placemaking Master Plan. So I don't believe there will be any confusion about what this document is. But we also thought, okay, is there an opportunity to further elaborate on what we seek to do with the town in a really simple way? And so for those, we had come up with Creative by Nature, a culture of community; Creative by Nature, a superior place for community; Creative by Nature, community spaces for everyone; Creative by Nature, celebrating community expression; and Creative by Nature, building a culture of community.
I like those.
And yeah, we have spent some time putting this together. It's not something that we need a final decision on tonight, and if we did decide something, it is open to tweaks. But we think that these are aspects that help to showcase what Superior has and the aspirations that this plan seeks to fulfill.
The fifth one down resonated with me, but I liked either saying connecting a culture of community, or fostering, building. We're just under so much construction that, to me, the word building doesn't have a positive note. But that's the only, I mean, I could live with building a community of culture, a culture of community too.
Well, so we rule out the bottom one now that I understand that the title is Creative by Nature, and then the tagline would be a culture of community or whatever. Now it makes sense. Okay. So for those of us who are not creative minded, so should we cross out the last one?
No.
You like it?
It's straightforward.
Okay, straightforward.
But he wants just one, right? Is that the idea? Yeah.
And didn't he just say the Superior Creative Placemaking Master Plan was going to be another heading below this?
On every page, you said somewhere, right?
On every page?
It could be. You're getting that one for free. And so there is space for an additional one, but there doesn't need to be. Now, Daryl, to your point, you're right. A lot of construction has been going on, so perhaps, so you mentioned either connecting or fostering.
Yeah.
I wonder if shaping the culture of community might work in that, shaping also has that sort of form aspect that fits in with some of the arts and culture activity.
Yes, and I don't just like building, it just, I just feel like there's maybe slightly better, more positive words.
Well, and a little bit more interesting.
Can I play?
Yeah, let's play, please.
Creative by Nature, a place for a superior community.
What was the first part you said? A good
Creative by Nature, a place for a superior, capital S, community.
A place for a superior capital community.
I don't know about a superior place. I don't know.
I struggle with the "we are superior to" for the connotation of
Yeah.
I don't like it, but I like when you say superior community.
A place for superior community.
I just like using the word superior.
What about our superior community?
I like that.
Because then it's ours.
Okay, that's true. Good. Anyway, I wanted to play.
Do you want us to land on something tonight, or do we keep looking at it and thinking about it?
If you're good with Creative by Nature, then we can wordsmith the other ones. I mean, these adjustments can be made. I mean, it would be helpful if we could have that set by the next meeting, so by the November 14th meeting. But give it some thought, and if you have other ideas, they're welcome as well.
I would like to, I think adding what Kevin just came up with is nice as a possibility too.
Right.
Or tweak that one line.
Shaping in Superior, shaping Superior's community, or shaping
See, shaping Superior's community is different than saying our Superior community. You know what I mean? When you say our Superior community, it's that we are Superior. Not with a large
With a
S, but
capital.
with a small s. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Was everybody good with creative by nature? Does that
Yes,
make sense?
yes,
Okay,
yes.
so that, and then it's just sort of, you know, pushing some words around, building some, no, just put, yeah. let's
Just take out building and put in something else. What was, shaping was good, fostering was good, connecting is good.
Yeah, well, we can.
And then I like
Superior
Kevin's too,
culture,
but-
what did you say?
Oh, I just said, connecting a culture of community or fostering a culture.
I like
Connecting.
Do we want the word
Okay.
superior anywhere in a tagline? Okay.
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 So what we're hearing, it sounds like a slight tweak on the fifth option. So instead of building a culture of community, shaping or connecting would be an option. And then another one would be a place for superior community or a place for our superior community.
Yeah, because when Patrick Hammer gave us master plans for a whole bunch of different towns, somewhere in the title is the town.
Yeah, the town needs to be.
Yeah, so I think
Yeah, I
we
do.
want the town somewhere in this title.
Yeah.
So if someone has it on their desk or whatever, they see it is Superior.
Well, you could
So-
do creative by nature, connecting a culture of community in Superior. if
Or
you
something
wanted
like
to
that.
add. And then we could just shorten it when it's not on the, you know,
The official document.
yeah,
Okay.
that might be a way to
Okay,
do it.
so we'll take what we're hearing now, and prior to the November 14th meeting, we're going to be sending you some files on November 8th, and we'll include some of the revised options there, which are narrower now, which is helpful in itself. So if it's all right with you, we'll just move on from there.
Great, so the next few slides, we're just going to quickly go through the results from all the engagement we've been doing that you have all been a big part of. And I'm starting with reflections on Superior. This is a question where we ask people to describe Superior in one word. All of this was taken from the first round of surveys last month. So you can see here the words that are bigger, more people have selected. So home, community, family, beautiful, friendly. We heard a lot of people say Superior is pleasant and clean and comfortable place to be. These are some of the words that we've been absorbing into the work moving forward.
And you also see them reflected in some of the taglines that we have.
You may see some of those words, yes.
Now, recognizing that we're about an hour in, we think it's important to go through these because it is informing a large part of our idea. But we also will move through them relatively quickly, if that's all right, as we receive this handout and nothing has changed on these slides.
Great. So aspirations for the plan, enabling residents to participate in community and enjoy arts and culture while staying in Superior, not having to go elsewhere, supporting community connection, defining Superior's appeal and having more fun, direct quote from several people I've spoken to, and then hopefully having all these things lead into strengthening the economy, creating a plan that welcomes all ages and abilities has been a really important takeaway to a lot of our engagement work. A recognition of Louisville and overall Colorado's creative growth that's been happening recently, and a lot of people have been speaking about the hope they have for downtown Superior as that develops. Hopefully attracting private amenities and strengthening the overall sense of identity in Superior. Overall, what people want to see from this plan, events has been a big piece. A lot of feedback around music and a lack thereof at the moment, and food, whether that's fun restaurants or opportunities to share food together. Social opportunities are a big thing. Having a place to have these social opportunities, so an indoor community space, again, for all ages and abilities, as mentioned before. Overall initiatives that enhance the outdoor assets Superior already has. In terms of art, the questions we've asked is for them to want it to be functional, interactive, incorporate the landscape. Kinetic and mural art really stood out in a lot of the feedback we got, and some interest in having community-made pieces as well. Overall, there is interest in having bigger streets and increasing mobility freedom in the town, and overall interest in additional forms of art that strengthen the identity, again, having the ability to put Superior on the map. Engagement results, summarizing what people offer. This is the question in the first round where we asked people to let us know the talents, placemaking talents that they have. Again, in word cloud format, a lot of people spoke about photography, music, overall crafting abilities. To those close to, there's some people who spoke about experience in planning and event management, and so lots of different pieces that were interesting to see, and it really speaks to the wide array of talent that is already present in Superior.
And we have been including these sheets at all of the in-person engagement events where we got a few names to go with these talents. With the online piece, to reduce the barriers to participate and increase participation rates, people didn't need to register, so we don't have a lot of the names to accompany this, but we consider this as a first step to creating a sort of creative placemaking registry in Superior, or database. It will take a little bit more work to develop, but clearly there's a lot of talented people who have an array of things to contribute to placemaking in Superior. And so in building on that creative by nature piece, there's so much that can be tapped into that is already here in town. So this is a really positive piece and something that we think is worth developing further.
Yep, and lastly, for the engagement results, we asked about aesthetic. This is from the Shindig last month. What we overall heard was that people do like colorful art and prefer the kind of more pieces as opposed to contemporary and muted. That was an interesting takeaway for us as well.
And at, I guess, every in-person event, we had the Superior Find Your Happy Place map, and also on the digital engagement, we included a mapping element. And in terms of what we consider to be strategic places for creative placemaking, we've highlighted each of these locations in orange. We've taken the feedback we received from you, from public, and then tried to balance it with broader recognition that there's a need to have opportunities for each neighborhood within Superior, and to ensure that everybody feels that they're going to benefit from this plan. And getting that community buy-in piece, one of the goals of the project, we think it's important to fulfill that by offering something to everyone, but then at the same time, recognizing that some neighborhoods are more excited about it than others. So for instance, Original Town has pretty limited interest in change. That doesn't mean we won't be doing anything there, but it means we need to be sensitive to the context. And then you also see the roots underneath, and we will get to that momentarily, but we see opportunity to not only offer something to each neighborhood, but to further connect them and do so in ways that create value for all residents.
Quick question.
Yeah.
So the colors, when you look on this, do they mean anything, or you're coming to that in the future? I mean, I saw another map that was similar to that.
Yeah, so there's a couple of different maps here. On this map, the orange doesn't have any meaning. The orange circle. The colored trails do have meaning, but I will come to that very shortly.
Okay, yeah, because I saw the other map. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, so then here's where they have meetings. So these are our initial ideas about what kind of color could come in there, or what kind of aesthetic could be accompanying an array of art types here. Of course, in this component, we are speaking largely about physical interventions. So while there's space for programming, here we're thinking more about aesthetic for a whole array of physical art forms. And so bright pink is signifying colorful and creative. The neon green is for landscape inspired, and then the maroon is for traditional and historic. And in some cases, we think there's overlap. So for instance, at the major trailhead, you could have a historic element, but perhaps that fits into the landscape. Whereas over by the Rock Creek Regional Trail, we understand that the demographic skews a little bit younger, so perhaps there's space for something that fits with the landscape and that has more color to it. And I mean, we're looking at the new park along the northern edge of downtown Superior, so we think there's a good opportunity there. And then we've got this colorful and creative piece within Marketplace, and we're exploring whether that would actually be in Marketplace or whether we come to the edges, which is something we're going to be continuing the discussion with Brixmor over the coming weeks. And we'll have further detail around that on November 14th. So here are the conceptual ideas. We've divided them into 5 high-level concepts. So we have this idea for an art trail that runs through Superior. We've heard a lot about the value and interest in functional arts for the town. We've heard about the need for community gathering spaces, public arts, and programming. And so in the following sections, we will detail each of those. And as noted previously, we have included these symbols for the goals and principles to highlight which of these are being fulfilled by each idea. And so this is a chance to pull up the survey that you have in Google Forms. And effectively we thought, okay, there's a lot of ideas in here. We will not be able to include all of them in a 5-year plan and with the budget available. And so we have a lot of great public feedback on what people have seen, and we've heard quite a bit from CAPS about what they would like to see. And so this is your chance now to look at the distilled version and give us what you consider to be these strengths and or the things you like the most and things you say perhaps like a little bit less. You have sheets of paper in front of you as well, and they might come in handy because so in each section that we're going to go through, you're going to be asked to score, what you think of is. And then the last question on each page, so we're going to do this section by section. So we'll go through art trail, which is just basically one marquee idea. But then with functional art and the remaining topics, there'll be a whole bunch of ideas, and you can score them to kind of keep track of your feelings as we go slide by slide. But then the final question is to rank them. And with Google Forms, it I think could be slightly more user-friendly than it is. So you may want to write down the number, just number your favorite ideas for each section as we go. But we're here working together, so if anything comes up, you're welcome to ask questions or anything. And we chose to go with the Google Form approach because it is a chance to get your direct feedback from each individual at the table in what we consider to be quite a democratic way. We also recognize that there's a limited amount of time to discuss each idea, and so we want to try and get through all of the ideas tonight. You have anything that you really love or you think that there's something we can build on and carry it further, we would love to hear that. If there's something you absolutely hate, we'd also like to hear that. And then if you have any questions, please let us know as well. And then otherwise, I think we have about 40 ideas to go through. So recognizing how much time that will take, we'll try to keep the discussion concise where possible.
We have 40 items.
Thank you for that.
And it's
Which, hopefully you had a chance to look at the packet that was sent out on Tuesday to go through it.
Yeah.
But we're going to be using your feedback and what we've learned from the public. We're going to be balancing these inputs along with what we heard from all of the sources that we've been looking at and our own assessments through the guiding principles of the project. And from there, we're going to determine cost range for selected activities. So we're going to get into more detail once we've heard exactly what is valued, and then we'll be able to present this stuff back on November 14th. The cost range for select activities, sequencing for select activities over the next 5 years, draft budget for the next 5 years for creative placemaking, the economic opportunities that may be presented or strengthened by pursuing certain ideas, as well as partnership opportunities and recommendations that can help to strengthen Superior's creative sector. So the first one up is the art trail. And, we heard a lot about the different neighborhoods within Superior. We heard a lot about how beloved the trails and open spaces within the town are. Many folks told us how they desired for both them and their children to be able to move through Superior safely without a car or with the option of moving without a car with ease. We also heard a lot about the need for social connection, the desire for social connection within the town. And when we looked at all the different ways that could be best fulfilled through a project that helps to put Superior on the map, what we arrived at was an art trail. And an art trail can take many forms, and what we'll be recommending as we go is that it could have different looks and styles depending on the location within town, but that we take it incrementally. We include high quality wayfinding, that we link the economic centers as well as the schools within Superior, and that we have this themed piece throughout. And so when we look at what that might look like, we've developed these potential routes, and of course this would need to be further developed with staff and flagging any partners that we could be in contact with. But we've made some recommendations around potential routes, and noted that this is something that could take place over a number of years. And we see significant opportunity to harness partnerships and identify allies in these economic centers, as well as with schools and perhaps other community groups as we move forward. And the sequencing depends a little bit on development that's taking place around town, but as we see it, you know, the first part would be connecting downtown Superior and Marketplace. This seems like a strong partnership opportunity in that downtown Superior markets itself for its walkability and highlights the access to the Whole Foods and other activities that are other amenities that Marketplace offers. Now, as we talk about these different opportunities to implement this plan and to connect people, you know, beyond CAPS committee, there is the open committee and the historic committee. So there actually could be opportunities to collaborate among the committees to fulfill this and ensure that we get significant buy-in and help to really make this something that everybody feels a part of, and also something that really highlights what the town stands for. So we have this first section up, and of course it seems too early for downtown Superior, then we could look around, we can change the sequencing a little bit, but we have that little red section between Superior Elementary and Rock Creek Village as the second part. And in making these safe routes for kids to get to and from school, we see a nice opportunity to tap into a lot of the interest in making it easier for kids to move freely and give parents the peace of mind that they do so. The Rock Creek Village piece comes in quite well, recognizing that a lot of the kids are hanging out at Starbucks before and after school, but then more importantly that the 1500 Colton building will be coming online while this plan is being implemented. Section 3 connects Wildflower Park and El Dorado School with Rock Creek Village with Colton as well. And then Section 4 would be a pretty major link, and that would be between downtown Superior and Rockbridge. And this being such a major link, I see a few different routes that it could take, and recognize that, you know, we go through homeowners association land, and there would be some additional pieces to address in doing so. So we've kept that quite flexible. I mean, all these routes are just the initial recommendations, so if you have thoughts or suggest that we speak to anyone else, we can do that. But we see this trail as a really nice opportunity to connect the town and highlight the different areas of interest. So for instance, on the east side of Section 1, we're kind of on the north part of downtown Superior, where we would be coming under the underpass and over to Grasso Park. This might be something that's bright and colorful and have some interesting art along the sides, whereas going through original town, we could see it being a little more muted and either like a more brick path with, I mean, one of the ideas we heard was around stones to recognize soldiers who had served from Superior. Or perhaps we look at some of the historic elements that are available already at some of the properties within town. And over at Wildflower Park, perhaps we look more at including lines of flowers along the side, but we can dig into look like recognizing that likely we're going to have different aesthetics during different or in different sections of the trail.
Hey, Mitchell.
Did you have any reflections on this?
So, Mitchell, it's Kevin. Love the enthusiasm. I'm just worried about the time here. I think you've got 40 questions, and I'd like to talk track over the questions. But if we have 40 minutes, and if you provide a 5-minute talk track over each question, we're going to be here for 4 hours, and I think we only have 40 minutes. So we're probably only going to have you, so your talk track's going to be about a minute per question, and that's all you get.
They get much shorter after, yeah.
With a big one.
So as you see, if you look at the survey, you're just basically asked to score this specific question on a scale of 1 to 5. And if you have additional feedback, you can put that below and then just click next.
You said score this question, you mean score this slide?
No, the question on the, you should be looking at this.
Oh,
How important is the?
okay, got it.
Got it.
These art trail routes. Okay, got it.
Okay. Moving into functional art, which, yes, will be hopefully a little bit quicker, as it is, it does recommend a few smaller kind of initiatives. So I'm going to walk us through our ideas here. Again, I'm just going to talk through them, and you will have the opportunity. This will be a little different than the art trail. On the survey, there's one question, essentially, the 1 to 5 ranking per slide. So follow along there and let us know if you get stuck or have any questions.
Okay.
So starting with functional art and traffic calming. One just we're looking at is road narrowing with greenery and murals. So using murals to create bump outs to increase pedestrian safety.
If you have any questions about the icons or anything on the side, just let us know. As we develop the budgets, we'll also be looking at maintenance for them as well. So for instance, having that on the side, if there was snowplows going over it, it's going to be a much harder wear and tear, as well as cars compared to trail.
Okay. Next up, again under functional art for road safety and traffic calming, we have parking lot painting. So using creative uses for paint to improve traffic flow in parking lots throughout Superior. And as the image shows, it also creates an opportunity to create spaces for people within these relatively underused spaces. Moving along, next up we have creative crosswalks. Again, this came up workshop, but using some more creative aspects in otherwise relatively uninspiring crosswalks.
And building on CAP's work already.
Mm-hmm. Moving on. Electrical box covers are another way to implement functional art. Here a consideration that is important to think about is, do we want to use art to kind of make these electrical stand out, or do we prefer to have them exist as they are and then fade into the background?
This is, we can't do these. We've already explored this avenue, and we can do signal boxes, but we can't do our electrical boxes. So I'd love to come up with another functional art idea.
Is that where the bus stops? That was why we replaced electrical boxes with bus stops.
Yeah.
The signal boxes are okay, but not electrical boxes.
Right.
Yeah, and there's, they're at the main intersections, they're silver, they're a little bit different. They actually look more like this.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mentioned that the other day, Jerry, and I have some photos for you guys. If you're going to keep this on the list, I can send you the photos.
Perfect, thank you, yeah, that's helpful. Okay, going through the list. Moving on to signage, so wayfinding, using maps, rather info kiosks, a little opportunity for a splash of art. And again, it's a good time with the art trail, using signage throughout the pathways. How's my pace? I'm going to continue onwards unless I hear otherwise.
You're doing good.
We're good.
Better.
Then we have street banners. The development of a street banner program overall, and looking at how to make this sustainable practice. The rotating banners and making sure that they don't have any signage on them that would require them to only be used once, or using them in alternative ways, perhaps recycling after they are done.
This is another thing that will have to be explored because Excel doesn't allow us to put things on our light posts. I mean, it's a great idea. I love it, but it's something we definitely have to, before we roll out ideas that are possible, I'd like to make sure that we can do this.
So one of the things,
Who doesn't allow it?
well, one of the things, Mitchell, we talked about on the phone the other day is that if CAPS is interested in some of these ideas, then on the staff level, I need to do some research. So this is one of those I need to talk with Public Works about. And if there's any sign codes or something that prevents us from putting up our own poles and in what locations and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think there's two, this is the age-old, should we versus can we?
Yeah.
So I think this is all about should we, and then can we can be a separate, I think unit can investigate.
So we should be
Right.
thinking about should we?
Right, yes.
Okay, and that's fine, I just, I'm always thinking about.
Right, you're pretty pragmatic. And then we can't do that, but yeah.
Love to do it.
They told us.
Yeah, we know which ones we need to.
Right, but let's focus on should we.
Yeah, but actually the marketplace could be an avenue for it because they have different poles that are not Excel.
And
So,
right,
You know,
and
so
frankly,
there's
frankly, if Excel's allowing us to put those 5G towers, that Verizon's coming on, but wait a minute, we can't advertise the street fair?
Right.
I want to fight that one for you guys.
I know. Well, and why
If we go with the should we?
Yeah.
Why can you do it along McCaslin and Louisville, and you can't do it in McCaslin and Superior?
we all have different utilities.
Oh, is that what it is?
I don't know what
Okay.
their reasoning is, but that is possible.
Okay.
So, okay, move on.
Should we?
Yeah, that's letting that is something to look into further. Next up, we have outdoor furniture. Two different examples here, either colorful furniture or applying art to existing pieces like the one on the right.
I love these.
I love this show.
Next up, we have an outdoor gym.
Should augment or be in addition to the existing gym.
Yeah.
Part of.
Moving along, oh, there it is. Using lighting as functional art. So, for example, light up the underpasses, increase the perception of safety for people walking through these spaces. Another application of functional art is the tactical approach. So, activating an intersection and measuring the results in a temporary way to assess whether it could be a good location for future long-term installation.
That's the kind of thing that could be a low-cost CAPS event and we assess how well it works before determining whether to make it permanent.
Okay, so we've made it through the functional art section. At the very end of
Oh, does it rank these?
the
Okay.
section on the survey, there is a grid to fill out, as Mitchell mentioned earlier, your preferences in order.
Oh, got it.
Again, not the most perfect way, we'll admit, of ranking preference, but essentially you want to pick one item per column. So the columns go from 1 to 10 on this one, yeah.
Mine's telling me to do that and it's not allowing me to hit next, but I've only picked one item per column. Has anyone else had that issue?
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, it should be one item per column and one item per row.
Right, okay.
This one is definitely a little bit easier on a bigger screen.
By process of
So
elimination.
what happened to the art walk?
So the art walk is a separate high-level category on its own. So because it is a little bit of a different format, there's a couple questions on that in the survey. So we're just
got
thinking
it.
about functional preference now.
Oh, okay, functional art, okay.
In organizing them in the manner that we have, we think that there is value in some components of each category, and it's just a question of which we would include.
Doesn't work on the mobile app?
Mine's
No,
not
is it
working,
working
says
on yours?
please don't select
That
more than
stinks.
one responsive
And I've checked
column.
like 10
Yeah.
plus times. I don't have
Oh, it
anything
just
double
says-
checked.
Oh, it's not working on mine either.
Per,
Yeah.
one per
Okay.
column.
But I missed a question at the top too. So.
I didn't miss anything or I didn't.
Mine's
Yeah, so we'll let you at next we've answered all of the questions. So you might want to double check that each of the rankings have been filled out as well.
You know what, I don't have 10 columns, I have 9.
So do I.
That's my problem.
Yeah.
Oh, I do too.
Oh, me too.
If you, can you just roll a bit to the right?
Oh, you gotta
Where do
You gotta use your finger.
Oh, okay.
Oh my gosh, you have to go all the way over to number 10. Got it.
There we
I
go.
was
On a
wondering.
scale of 1 to 10, okay.
Okay.
All right, and now I can move on.
Okay, yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
I'm getting there.
Who figured that out?
Yeah, just
I
Good
usually
enough.
explain, but I still have 9.
Okay, so can we come back to this later and keep going, because it's gonna take me a while? Are you guys all done?
Okay.
I don't think you'll be able to hit next until you have filled out the boxes, but
Got it.
your personal preference later.
There we go.
gathering spaces, we heard very strong interest in indoor spaces. And to this end, the 1500 Colton building certainly is a huge opportunity. There will be a separate design process around and engagement process around what that looks like. But what we can do at this stage is provide material to help support that process. So one of the things that we heard a lot around was the value in including iconic art piece at this new building, as well as, or this renovated building, as well as a library pickup and drop-off location. And the pickup and drop-off location was the recommendation of the librarian, Sharon Nemchek, who sees this as a first step to, or one of the ways that the library can get more involved in what's going on in Superior. How's everybody doing over there?
Is there a place for comments on this one? I just
At the end of each category, there is.
There's like a little line there that says, your answer.
And
so if it's a nice drop-off pickup is nice. If people wanted to consider library annex in the comments, that would be
a library annex, not just dropping off and picking up books.
But a little annex there would be, you know, I'm not trying to suggest anything, but I'm trying to skew the results.
Yeah, but still you have a really valuable opinion on this.
Yes.
So, I know, Jerry laughs.
What do you
We've also heard a lot of desire around all ages and abilities space. This could include many different activities within it, but that was something that was important. And not only is 1500 Colton coming, but there is a new community space slated to be included at downtown Superior. So opportunities to shape that can be useful as well.
It's not working. It's not working on your
Did it
phone.
right. Mine's not working. Did yours go through?
I did. Did you swipe over so you could get the column?
I did, yeah. I don't know, man.
Let me make that last question not essential. So we can come back in a little bit.
Parklet. It's a teeny tiny baby park.
The teeny tiny baby park.
Like you can put them in a parking space or, here's a picture of one.
Yeah, there's a picture in the back.
Here, I'll show you the parklet. Right there.
Oh.
So you just take an area and
Right,
turn it
right.
into like a little fun.
Okay.
We talked about doing stuff like that in the marketplace.
Yeah.
Okay. And at the same time, we're trying to tweak this survey so that it doesn't need you to answer for each, just to be able to let people move forward. If you're having major issues with it, I would suggest just choosing like 1 to 10, like a diagonal piece across, and we can come back to that afterwards.
Oh, that was helpful.
Like that.
I'm trying to explore all this.
Diagonal across.
We can always resend this in an easier format later.
On the community spaces side, we heard a lot of interest in a bar, brewery, or drinking space. Now, we aren't recommending that the town subsidize this, but there could be activities or bylaws that could help, help or hinder its implementation. So whether we're able to have, say, buskers out in downtown Superior would be something that could potentially help it, where restricted alcohol laws could be a challenge. But the key thing is we don't recommend that the town subsidize the creation of this space. I think that downtown Superior has been working very hard to get that in there for a nice restaurant. And then a maker space / co-working space. So this could take a number of different forms. This could be in partnership with the library. It could be a co-working space run by a private firm, but we see pretty good opportunity. We heard a lot about why this might be valuable for Superior residents. And finally, the tactical, very short-term version would be a parklet, where we could take some road space or parking lot space and create a outdoor shared space. And you may think of Main Street in Louisville as an example of what that could look like. Not going to be a test before we come to
Christina, do you want me to see if I can open a second browser window and you can take it?
Well, and this is weird too, because did Mitchell just say do column 1 and column 10, and then go on to the next one, but it's not allowing me to
No, you
do
have
that.
to just go all the way across one, like. so-
You need to have one response per column and
Actually,
per row.
Oh, I see what you're, oh, got it,
So-
Yeah, but I
okay.
have each column, how many columns
Each
do, are
row,
there
right?
7?
Oh.
Right, but I don't have any
Column
extra.
1,
1, 2,
row 2, column 2, row 3.
Do you guys have 7 columns or 6?
So 6.
I have 6 too. But it's not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
And I have to get rid of my old answers first. I
That's
give
my
up.
least favorite. I'm not taking that as my favorite then.
now you're changing your,
Yeah.
just to try and get by. That's what I was trying to do.
Yeah, I don't like.
I mean, you'd have to follow the thing that you probably.
Oh, maybe it is the mobile, or is it, because that's an iPad, right? Or is that?
Yeah, it behaves differently.
So ours is, yeah, ours are all, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I give
I
up.
think it's not you, so.
I could try
I
and put
wouldn't
another
try.
browser window in.
We deleted this question from the remaining sections.
It's just not working.
Okay,
I think it's
so
a
you
bug
wanna-
on the mobile app, actually.
And because you have the presentations, we can resend this afterwards, and then the second time we would ask that you include your name, we'll set that up. But so that way you can look at it again when you're at home.
Cool.
Yeah, thank
Perfect.
you.
Thanks.
Okay.
So we're not, we're stuck? Is everybody?
Yeah.
He'll send.
Everybody's gonna resend it.
No, there, if you have a
See,
computer.
mine work.
If you have a computer, it works. If you have a mobile
Okay.
app, it does
It's
not
not
work.
working.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So we're good. We'll have to do it later, I think.
Awesome,
Okay.
thank you.
Write that out. This was the one question that was, or this ranking question was,
Yeah.
there were no really nice with the various softwares we had.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so is everyone ready to move on to public art?
Sure.
Great. So first idea in public art is looking at murals. Lots of good response around the concept overall for murals, whether that's a sports table, underpasses again, as you mentioned before, parking lot, or skate park. So opinion on murals overall. Another approach to murals is to take the tactical method, again involving community-made murals and chalk art, for example. Another approach to public art is through sculptures, lighting, or other installations. One example is having installations along the many running trails that we've heard so much about. Another topic under sculptures art is the relocation of the sunflowers and coal carts. Not saying where they should go, but just the concept of relocating them at some point.
In my practical sense, they have, is reminding you they have to stay in the marketplace.
Okay. Noted. Another idea under public art is these picture frames of landscape. So Dina has provided us these beautiful examples. And apparently this piece specifically is for sale. Dina, you were saying?
Yeah, it's available.
Yeah. So an example of what could be done, again, creating kind of like this photo opportunity for residents and visitors. Another piece under public art is an idea to do prairie dogs pop-up, so having statues of prairie dogs in kind of unexpected locations throughout Superior to wrap in the narrative and have a little identity throughout the community.
We saw this in the CAPS ideas, and thought it was really nice. This is a pop-up just as a type of statue, so not something that would be moved very regularly, but you could locate them throughout town and have a little scavenger hunt, different opportunities.
So one thing you guys really haven't had the opportunity to do yet is talk with Mitchell and Sherry about what your current work plan is, so they see this in your work plan. They don't know the status and where you guys are at, so it might sound like they don't know the details, and you're right, because nobody's really shared any details with them about the status of your current projects.
Okay.
Unfortunate.
Shall we proceed?
Yeah, go on.
Go.
More under public art, looking at the idea of created art. activities around the school, so either before or after school programs. Another suggestion under public art is to have light installations on buildings, so less as a source of lighting, but more as a form of art. Another idea is to have kinetic art, so art and installation that moves with the wind or different weather patterns.
And recognizing that both this one and the previous one come with significant cost. So, we have this art trail as the marquee project, but any other large ones, we'd have to stagger year by year, as there would be substantial investment required for any of these major pieces. Even this GIF looks really cool.
Yeah, very mesmerizing, yeah. Another approach to public art is through gardens and park art, so augmenting Superior's fantastic landscaping with gardens that literally are art. An opportunity, for example, would be at Wildflower Park to rewild the park. Oh, we've made it.
So finally to the programming section. So we've heard how beloved events are in Superior and are interested in assessing whether there's space for further ones from CAP's perspective. So first we have Shindig Round 2. We heard very positive things about that, and we're curious whether you thought this was something to continue again next year. The event, Superior Spectacular, so again conducted this summer, and interested to hear your thoughts on whether this is something to pursue next year, or see your input about whether this should be done again next year. For the block parties, and so this would be opportunity for people to apply to conduct a block party, and it could either be facilitated through funding to support that, or in having a town concierge who essentially takes care of any event permitting or other bylaw navigation that's necessary. Dinner in the park. So we heard some interest in having these long table dinners. There's various opportunities to do that. There's Dîner en Blanc is this organization that has been conducting these dinners where everybody dresses in white across, well, I guess, Europe and North America. And so that would be a group that could facilitate this effectively. More outdoor movies. So the Homeowners Association is already hosting several movies, and if there was interest, the town could fund additional movies. Markets, so we could look at arts and crafts markets or farmers markets. Interestingly, there are some challenges around farmers markets on any of the major privately owned properties, where if there's another grocery store present, they likely have restrictions on what can be conducted. So for instance, in speaking with the folks at Marketplace, because there's a Whole Foods present there, they are not able to host a farmer's market. An arts and crafts market would be a question mark that would be resolved if we choose to pursue that. In terms of events that we're currently lacking, we received a lot of feedback around adding music events. And this could really come at an array of spectrums from, say, an entertainer in downtown Superior, so providing funding to conduct that, to a larger music festival, to simply providing a space where people could play music in town, in a park, for instance.
Could we change that wording to say music festival and not jazz festival? I think that's a pretty niche area, and music festival is open to all varieties of music. I looked through the surveys multiple times, and people really have an interest in music, but they didn't specify jazz. So I think that it would be really nice to just say music festival.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Are we not doing this survey, or am I the only one still doing it?
No, it was good to send it out later.
Mine's done.
If yours
Otherwise, we will resend it afterwards.
Okay, because I'm on tactical approach co-creation events. So should I keep doing
Okay,
it?
so you're,
Yeah, if you're going through it, I would.
yeah, you're right.
Okay, yeah.
That's really good.
If you can do your homework in class.
We will-
Okay.
Although I'm going so fast, I'm really not thinking probably as.
Okay. Well, we'll resend the survey as well as the presentation, so you'll see this updated presentation with the icons linking each idea to the goal and concept, so you can do it at your leisure, and we'll follow up with instructions around that.
And how much diversity do you want in these answers? Like, I like all of them. So do you want me to have some that are only a 1?
That's where the ranking piece becomes really important,
Okay.
because we will need to decide, and so seeing how challenging that ranking piece has been, that's where doing it afterwards could be helpful.
Okay,
And
got
in the
it.
end, yeah, it will be important to narrow down on the choices.
Okay.
So creating the amphitheater space, that could be built up, that could be something a little bit more natural. There's different ways to create a space where people can enjoy music.
On this slide.
I don't have that slide. Did you add that?
Yeah, it was added in the first version that we think so, yeah.
That's not what. Do you have music?
I didn't have that on the.
I don't have that slide.
I don't have that slide. That's a real bummer.
Because mine goes from farmers events to events music, where we left out jazz and put in music. The next one is tactical co-creation.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, each time is sampled.
Two slides that have been added.
Okay.
So the next one is around programming involving the library. So that could be author readings or demonstrations and classes. So one idea was, if you have a cookbook author doing a tour, they could come and do a demonstration, do some cooking with a class as well. That could also be, paint by the numbers. That could be all sorts of different things. And then look and do programming. So, recognizing the amazing outdoor assets that Superior has. If you had a book on bird watching or the trails of Boulder County, you could have a discussion about that, then walk the trails, or vice versa. Another opportunity to link the library with activities here. And then finally, the tactical co-creation, so a chalk festival, where we have a wall for families, for children, and of course anybody else who's interested who could get involved with what sort of art they might like to see in the location. And then finally, activating parking lots at Marketplace and Rock Creek Village. So creating temporary furniture and, a park basically out of this sea of parking. And there are some.
Mitchell, as a sideline, we went into Boulder. There's a new place in Boulder called Rosetta Hall, and it's on Pearl Street, and it was packed. A pretty amazing place. It's 8 well-known new chefs or whatever, and a bar, and it's pretty cool. And they're doing another one right on Pearl Street with another company in the old Cheesecake Factory, Avante. And it was just amazing how busy they were last weekend.
Thank you for the heads up. And then just a couple of notes on programming. We see a lot of value in the existing events, and of course we need to balance what is already going on with what could be added. That there needs to be some time between events for preparation. So more than 2 weeks is the minimum for major events. And, in the additional funding sources, there could be opportunities to turn these events into fundraisers for the town or for CAPS as well. And then finally, we see, there's a lot of passion around sports in Superior, and I saw that firsthand at one of the major swim meets that the Flyers had, and in a lot of ways it has a festival-like atmosphere. So we're still exploring this, and we don't have an extremely clear idea of what that might look like, but opportunities to combine the arts and culture pieces with sporting events seems like a powerful way to connect community within Superior and link a couple of the things that people are most passionate about in the town. And also recognizing that these public pools are actually pretty large gathering spaces.
Is that what you mean? I said I didn't really understand the bullet, second and third bullet. Inside both pools, you're just saying it's a large gathering space?
Yeah.
Okay, and then the
Yeah, there
logos
are-
on sports field, what does that mean?
That would be another opportunity or another option if you had an artist create the logos. Like, you know how many sports fields have the team's logo or
Okay,
the town logo.
gotcha.
So, and if you have additional thoughts on how we could perhaps link the arts and sports communities, we are very open to them. In terms of connecting people, social clubs is like another good opportunity. So things that can be programmed and then either run by groups or with other support. Perhaps that's in some of the admin categories, like, you know, trail running clubs, cooking clubs, book clubs, nature clubs, and intro to art clubs would be some of the things where if there's an opportunity for people to sign up and take part in these activities, we think there's pretty strong demand for this from what we had heard from people, especially as Superior grows. You know, new residents, I think, could use a little bit of support in getting to know existing residents, and these activities seem like powerful ways to connect folks. And then finally, skill scoping. So we recognize that Superior has a lot of art, culture, and creative placemaking skills to contribute, and residents do, and they're currently sort of hidden. And so borrowing from a mining analogy, you know, if we're able to daylight these existing ideas and mine the skills that exist in the town already, there could be some tremendous opportunity to build on what already is present in the town. And one very small example was just the video edited of the swim team. And like, this was a top quality, basically professional video edited in a day. So if there are other opportunities to highlight that, you know, it seems like there are skills in town that can be harnessed. And so that is all of the ideas.
That's impressive, 7:52. To your chair, we made it.
We did. I'm proud of us.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
That's impressive.
When you send out this survey again, could you send us this most current version, because there's slides missing and the headers are different? I'd just like to have the same
It's helpful to have them both.
contextual information.
Yeah,
as well.
absolutely.
Thanks.
And you could always
Yeah, we've been
rewatch
working through updating these
this
pieces
video
and
in the survey.
having them as strong as possible to share with you.
No, I like the subheads with programming and whatnot, and I realize that mine didn't have that, so it'd be nice if I'm seeing what you're seeing.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll include both those in the follow-up email. Okay, so we've talked about a lot of things, and we have a couple of minutes left, and there might be a few other things that you want to discuss. So just really quickly, we highlighted what the next steps will be, but just to note where we see some opportunities. There are potential mechanisms, so.
Yeah, so just going really quickly, again, we've sort of touched on identifying what to look into further, but looking at funding from the capital improvement plan as the case currently, looking into grants. We've listed a few that we've heard a lot about, particularly the National Endowments in the Art Town grant has come up in a lot of our best practice research as sort of funding for other organizations. And also looking into additional funding options, either whether that's the percent for art tax or public arts and public development is an avenue to explore. We're looking at special tax for future public, noting that percent for art and special tax are probably unlikely in the context of Superior based on how much funding is already devoted to placemaking, but just highlighting these as things that we are looking into in the next few weeks.
Well, just actually on that note, we have talked about there is a landscaping fee, and it wouldn't, I mean, I know it's a tax, but it could be an art fee, whether it's $2 per home, and it's just something that we have. I don't even know if it's possible, but it's an idea that we've floated around and talked about, just sort of like the landscaping fee. So
Like Rock Creek has, because our neighborhood's talked about that.
yeah. So
Yeah, the
anyway, that's
landscape
just
fee.
something.
And it would be like a
it's
$2
not-
art fee?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there are an array of options. We see that funding for creative placemaking Superior is coming from the capital improvement plan, and that in some places that could be typically on certain projects, but in Superior it's full. So there is a decent amount of funding for creative placemaking given Superior's budget. So while there are additional funding opportunities from within the town, we see grants as particularly strong opportunities. And if we look at something, the art trails, that lets us look at grants beyond just the art world and look at, say, things that support like physical activity or healthy lifestyles, given the nature of that intervention. So we're going to be looking at some of the different ideas, and we'll base that largely on what you think are important activities to look more deeply into.
You know what, Mitchell, a couple of them. The Rotary of Boulder County has partnered with us for the Chili Fest for whatever, 6 years. And they have a pretty substantial foundation. So the Rotary Foundation might be interested in doing, and they're kind of known for almost like special needs parks and stuff like that. And the other one is Lifetime Fitness has a pretty strong foundation also. I know they're kind of
in the potential partner.
Should we put those under potential? Okay.
There's the next slide.
Oh, the next slide is potential. Got it.
Partners, but Rotary's
But we didn't have either of those, so that's very helpful.
Yeah, Lifetime Fitness has a large foundation, and the Rotary has a very substantial foundation, so.
Great. This is helpful. Thank you. And just because Lifetime Fitness is a private company that has a gym.
Yes, but they do have a foundation. Only I know because I contributed to it, so.
Good to know. And so when we look at potential partnerships, here in alphabetical order are some of the ones that we think present some promise. Some could be funding, some can just be about, implementation of these spaces to ensure that get carried forward. So Bell Flatirons being an area that already does some programming. We understand that they do some food truck nights. That could be something that could be further developed. Boulder Columbia Open Space, of course, having the trailheads in Superior, but then these great trails that go into the open space area. Be another one. Chamber of Commerce, that could take a number of different forms, but there could be space for Creatives Award or other ways to showcase creative work going on in Superior. Downtown Superior, of course, is going to be very important. Homeowners associations, the library, any local nonprofits that might fit in. The town of Louisville, as it seems that there are relatively strong connections, good cooperation, and it seems to have been, growing cooperation in recent years. Marketplace, multiple departments within the town. Rock Creek Village as the biggest HOA. The RTD as given certain locations could be something. And we understand that SCFD funding can be available to organizations, so it's not something that the town could tap into. And I think this came up in an earlier CAPS meeting that there were certain the organizations need to be a certain age before they can participate, but doing a bit of scoping into organizations that currently receive funding within the town might be interesting.
And
then
do you have any idea, and remind me what those letters are, the
Scientific and Cultural Facilities District.
Okay.
Mitchell, we should talk about that more because municipalities do qualify.
Yeah.
So.
But you have to be, we've looked at it, but you have to have been established for at least a year.
Right, but this is a 5-year plan. So I would say by the end of the 5 years, we should be qualifying for SCFD funding. And so we can go over that in a little bit more detail, Mitchell.
Excellent. Of course, there are certain opportunities there. And then beyond CAPS, there's other town committees. And we see a lot of opportunity for cooperation around some of these interventions. But also, in interacting with each other, you might find common goals, or to know that certain other committees are looking at doing things that have a placemaking component. And so, even having a meeting quarterly where the different committees send representatives to talk about their primary issues and objectives for the year could be an interesting way to foster a spirit of cooperation among the committees.
So one thing I would, I wanted to add that, and I don't think it's been brought up in any of our conversations, but a lot of us on the committee have expressed an interest in a print newsletter. And so I think that needs to be something that gets added to the plan. We feel like the print is really valuable to especially a certain demographic appreciate the print stuff coming to them. And we think that our success with the Shindig had a lot to do with our postcard mailer. So I think that needs to be, I don't know where it fits into the master plan, but I wanted to bring it up as something that we want to do next year as a committee. And I'm seeing head nods everywhere around, so.
Louisville has a great one, if you want an example, by the way.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, you got a calendar.
Yeah, that's helpful. You've heard a little bit about mailers, but I think that's the first time it's been brought up directly, and of course we would want to have budget to do that.
Right, but if we have $150,000, we sure ought to have budget to do it.
Yeah. And so, in terms of the next step, now we need to add one more, which is that we will send a follow-up with the revised plan and with the link to the survey, and we will be doing that tonight. Is it realistic for you, for the whole CAPS committee group, to complete this survey by, say, end of day Sunday?
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mitchell, don't forget to put something on there so we can put our names.
That'll be important for this round. Thank you.
Is there a section in that Google form where people can add other ideas? Because I didn't see that in the slide to go over anything for other ideas.
Yeah, that was in the other comment sheet, but we can add it, make sure that it's a little more explicit.
And I wasn't suggesting a name, so it's still relatively anonymous. It's just so Mitchell can keep track of who did it,
Right.
type of thing. We're not trying to hold you guys. Right. I'm sorry. I've been out of
Yeah,
town.
and I think the results, like we can share what the top interests were, but we wouldn't be sharing who has said what. So from there, we're going to review the outcomes of the meeting, and we can share that mid next week, as long as we get all the responses in. From there, we're going to determine the cost range for the activities that CAPS thinks are most important and that we think align with public feedback as well as the principles of the project. We can recommend the sequencing for activities over the next 5 years, start to draft a budget for what that might look like, identify the economic opportunities that are possible, and investigate the opportunities for partnerships, as well as making preliminary recommendations on building the creative sector. Our intent is to share all of that with you prior to the long weekend, so on Friday, November 8th, and that would give you time to review before the November 14th meeting. We then meet on November 14th and present to the Board of Trustees on November 18th, and turn everything that we've heard, building incrementally, and would present with these boards to the public on the weekend of December 17th.
Dina, can you give us our to-do list? Or will we see this again somewhere?
The next steps.
The next steps, so that we know, like, okay, by Sunday, we have to finish the questionnaire, whatever. Can you send us little reminders?
We'll have to do that by Sunday, finish the questionnaire, and then we can include the kind of key asks for CAPS that should be included. So yeah, we can do that. Thank you.
So the activities that we saw in this plan, those are the activities that you're considering for the next 5 years?
Yes. Because we're open to additional ones, but we're distilling what we've heard and adding or distilling them through the principles and objectives of the plan, as well as everything we've heard through public engagement.
So you don't see it changing over,
Well, we see that there is somewhat, we're dealing with a finite budget, and so some activities would be included in certain years, some could be included in others. There would also be including a measures of success section that could serve to adjust what's going on. So for instance, if we're talking about events, we would include a certain amount of funding for events. We could make recommendations for what we think are the best events, and then a series of measures to evaluate the success of that. And if you decide an event isn't successful, you wouldn't be locked into doing it for 4 more years. Of the opportunity to adjust, recognizing that you would have a certain budget to do so, but also noting that there would be opportunities during that time. Each budget is crafted around this time of year for the following calendar year, and so you would have opportunities to make adjusted recommendations based on how you felt the year had gone.
Okay, because we've been so busy that we really haven't sat down with our basic evaluation of the main event yet. We haven't done Shindig yet.
And do we want to do Prairie Dogs for 5 years?
Right, exactly.
So those are the things that come to mind when I'm thinking about this plan.
We also did block parties, and they were very successful, and there was no cost to them, actually. We got businesses to chip in, and we did them at, what, 10 parks?
Well, yeah, they were sponsored by a chamber.
Yes, a chamber business sponsored a park for the block parties. And we had one at North Pool and South Pool, which were probably the 2 biggest.
Mitchell, in your next presentation, can you include an implementation plan, at least a draft for the 5 years, and so you can see how...
We won't be able to include that in what we present on Sunday, but we can include that by November 8th.
Yeah, that's what I mean, for that November meeting, so that they can get an idea of the implementation. Just for example, if you guys decide you want to do an art trail, whether or not that's the name, it could take several years to develop.
Oh,
So like that right there, if you wanted, you could spend $100,000 a year on developing an art trail and several routes. So I think that to get an idea, Mitchell, of what you're talking about, like really seeing a time horizon is going to be important in November.
Yes, okay. Yeah, when we say sequencing for activities for the next 5 years and then the draft budget plan, that's what we're referring to, but we'll make sure that that piece is clear. So it's 10 after 8, and we've run through a lot of things. We're going to follow up this evening with the revised plan as well as the Google form. Is there anything else that you would like to discuss? Do you have any questions or other pieces that you would like to flag while we're all together?
We're all quiet. I think that's a no.
Okay, that's it. It seems like the camera's off. We can't see you anymore.
And can you make sure you send out that this next steps page so that we have that as well?
That'll be
And maybe a little bit more specifics on what an art trail could look like what goes along there. Is it sculpture? Is it painted things on the street? Like how take, for example, the first section that you were talking about in Original Town. What does that look like so that we have a sense of what an art trail might be?
Oh, that's a really good idea. You know, Boulder has an amazing art trail along Boulder Creek.
Okay.
So if we knew what it could look like.
This is something that we can add to the November 8th presentation.
November 14th?
And we can get into more detail about what that might look like.
November 14th, Mitchell?
What's that?
November 14th?
Yeah.
Yeah, but we'll send everything November 8th for the November 14th.
Oh, okay, I see. Maybe that could include just like 3 examples of other trails around the country. I know that you were looking deeply at the one in Lakewood, so maybe 2 others.
Yeah, 40 West. I know, but I just,
40 West is
I don't know that everybody has a sense of what the art walk means and what, does it happen in 6 months? Does it happen, again, like that implementation plan will be really helpful.
Oh, for sure.
you know, are the prairie dogs going along that? Where are they
Oh,
going?
you're right. And if you end up at Marketplace and you reposition the coal and the sunflowers, then maybe those could be repositioned and incorporate in, and, yeah, it's pretty cool. If you've been here, this is like, it's cool.
Yeah, and we're also recognizing that there should be some flexibility in this. There will be different options, but absolutely, we can include what each portion might look like. And looking at those different sections, we are imagining those as an annual piece. And within that plan, that would take about 4 years to complete. Of course, you can adjust budgets to do that faster or slower as you feel is warranted. And then, yeah, I mean, statues along the side have different maintenance needs than paint on the sidewalks, and so there might be, or on the trail itself, so there might be spaces where paint makes the most sense because there's a lot of traffic and it's very appealing, but, you know, on a section that has less foot traffic, you know, recognizing that snow removal would require greater maintenance of the paint on the pathway, maybe their statues make more sense. So we'll include greater detail around that for the follow-up meeting.
Okay. Nice.
That's exciting.
So thank you so much, everybody, for your time. We really appreciate it, both the feedback we received beforehand and the fact that you took a look beforehand, and then everything that we went through tonight. It was a lot of content, so we'll be following up with the survey and the revised deck and the next steps for CAPS. And looking forward to seeing you all on November 14th, and then in person during the December 7th, 8th weekend.
Great. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Take care.
You too.
Okay, so it's 8:10 and we have things to do, but we don't have to do them,
So do we want to,
You are the last party in the conference.
talk about the bus shelters at,
do you want to give us a quick update on what you guys have been, who's been?
Well, Claire,
Well, we got the.
I know, but Christina and Terry have been
okay.
working.
In it. I mean, since our last meeting, we kind of gave all of our updates, and then I think the emails that everyone got on the RFQ or whatever, right, or where we're at. So we just have to, send out the RFQ? Or it's different than an RFP, right? Didn't they change it?
Yeah, an RFQ is just a request for qualifications. So if you want to go over that, we can. I have some more info. Do you want to do that topic, or you don't want to do that topic?
sorry, I thought it was an RFP.
It sounded like Terry did want to talk about the bus stops.
Well, I was gonna say, do we want to do that now, or do we want to wait until the?
Well, I read through the RFQs that you sent, so I liked Claire's additions.
Yeah.
Nice and.
Well, yeah, the question is on the table. Do you guys want to do that topic now?
what's the
Because if
time
you do, I
frame on
have some
it?
info. Yeah. Do you want to do it?
Sure, yes, let's take 5 minutes to talk about it.
Okay.
Because we're all here, so.
Yeah, okay. So Claire and the group you know have been working on a plan and an idea, and they might be able to give you a better idea of what's been going on in the meetings. But the report I had and direction from Claire was to draft an RFQ, which I submitted to Claire, and she made some revisions. So I do have hard copies that I'll pass out here. And then I also wanted to share with you another piece of info a tool that I use when we do the start of a project. So I usually do what's called a project implementation plan, and that's this document. So this is just a draft, obviously, because you guys haven't made any decisions, but this gives you a good idea of the kind of tool that we should use when we start a project, so that everybody's on the same page about what we're doing.
What and when?
And so it's a project implementation plan. So the top, I'll just go through the sections briefly. The top is always the goal of the project, the timeline, the art selection process. Then on page 2 is the approval process, the project criteria, and the budget. So I call that a project implementation plan, and that helps us just we really just fill in each of these subjects for each project. So then from there, you develop the request for qualifications, which is the other document. So that's the actual advertisement that's going to be distributed. The project implementation plan is internal. So it's internal for everybody who needs to know in the approval process what we're doing. The RFQ, just again, is for external use for advertising the opportunity for people to apply. So it is redundant information right at this point because the RFQ and the implementation plan were developed in like the same 2 days. But usually it doesn't happen that way. Usually you do the implementation plan first. So you guys give me all the criteria, all the procedures, everything. I put it in an implementation plan and we agree on this plan. And then I take this plan and I implement it. So the first step in the implementation is to write an RFQ. So we just happen to have the first step in implementation ready now. So, so the next step would be for you all to look at the RFQ. Claire already has done it and she's put in some comments. I see in the printed version, her comments are not all in green, which they were on my computer version. So the yellow highlights are my highlights for you guys to take notice of, the areas that need questions answered. And then
there's red.
The red is also kind of, it's draft right now because the timeline hasn't been finalized. So I don't think you have to focus much on the implementation plan right now, but I just wanted to show you a sample of what really is the first step in starting the project. And then, so
the request for qualifications.
So we can go through the request for qualifications now and see if you guys want to make any revisions to it, and if you're good with it, as far as I understand, the subcommittee wants to run with it.
Well, and this is what Claire sent us, right?
I would like to take.
I read it. Okay.
It was sent out this morning.
Right. Oh, okay.
I haven't had time.
Yeah, so if you want to take another.
But then that just slows the process down. So if other people have read it and feel comfortable.
Actually, it's pretty cool that when you guys were doing this, even last Superior, remembering the architectural heritage of a Colorado coal mining town and doing it from the book and stuff. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a budget established for this?
It's on here somewhere.
Yeah, so in the implementation plan,
Right down here.
explains the budget. Right now, it's still in very, very preliminary. So you can look at the last page. We talked about at a previous meeting many months ago about doing 6 bus shelters. And then I went and got a preliminary estimate from Fast Signs and one other sign company. And they both came in at between $800 and $1,200 per bus shelter. But then we went back to the drawing board and had them actually go out to the site, do all the measurements. And so that's where this line item is coming from, where it's the last line. It says vendor printing and installation. So Fast Signs, after very close inspection and after the test, have determined that it's going to be closer to $2,200 for each bus shelter if we do all the glass panels one-sided. Okay, and I have, yeah, so I have the detailed estimates here if anyone really wants to look closely at them, but we just really need to decide, once we have probably an artist on board, how many glass panels do we want to do? Do we want them to be 2-sided? And which material do we want? Because that is going to fluctuate the cost immensely. You can see if we just do the bare bones, which is probably just the back panels of the shelter, and I was going to open a picture.
That's 4 panels.
Then that's the 4 back panels would be the lower end of the budget.
And I think what we were discussing as a committee, and depending on how you guys feel, but we didn't want to rush it and we want to do nice ones. Like, so if we just have to do only 2 to have both sides and it look nice, because if it just has one side and it's white on the other side, I mean, or depending on how the artist will do it, I don't know.
I think you need to direct the artist. I don't think that you
Right,
can.
we direct the
You need
artist.
to tell them that they're designing
Okay.
2 panels.
Yeah.
You can't leave it up to them, because otherwise it will be the high end.
Well,
Yeah.
actually, if they design it, why can't the printing be done on the same thing
If
on
it's
both sides?
see-through, there's some of that like film stuff, but I think an artist has to actually cut that out and apply it. If it's,
Well, it's
is that what you're talking about?
Well, there's 2 questions here. First, we can do one-sided or two-sided. So you do the inside of the glass and the outside of the glass.
But it can be the
That's
same
two-sided.
piece.
Right,
But that's the cost. So if we do one-sided, it's at the lower cost on this range.
At
So
$1,200.
it's closer to like $1,200 per bus
And that's
shelter.
like opaque, right? That's why you'd have to do.
No,
two-sided, right?
no, the opacity doesn't matter. It's just the, how many sides and how many glass panels.
Oh, okay.
Excuse me, how many, one-sided, two-sided, or how many glass panels?
If they do like the transparency film stuff though, it's like see-through, right?
Yeah,
So
those,
like if
remember
you
the
just did
historical ones we
one-
saw?
I didn't like those. They were hard to see.
Right, but if you
Or
give,
not.
if you, for example, if you give an artist the artistic merit to decide which material to use, then you would have layers that might be, some layers might be transparent, some might be opaque. It really just depends on the design.
Right.
Because if you look at the 3 samples on the bus shelter right now, with the combination, it could give like a certain storyline, right? Like you use the different materials for different storyline.
Right, yeah.
In the same bus stop?
In the same bus shelter. So that's what, we would hire an artist to do, is figure out how the images are woven together to make the story.
Okay, so it's dependent.
Yeah, I mean, we can't just go and, I shouldn't say can't. I don't recommend that we just go and print a bunch of images and just stick them up there.
Right.
I mean, you can do that if you really want to, but I wouldn't recommend that because it's not very deep or thoughtful.
Right.
So that's why I think the subcommittee decided they wanted to hire an artist to create the story for each bus shelter.
And like Christina said, I mean, we only do 2 one year. Then that's part of the budget to do maybe 2 more the next year. And eventually get them all done, but, do them.
So they're done well.
Well,
Yeah.
that would be a problem with the wearing though, wouldn't it? Because doesn't it wear off after like 3 or 4 years?
Yeah, the upkeep, I don't know.
I don't have the
Something.
statistics on the longevity, but
I
we
sort
can
of
get that.
picture this thing happening all at once. So the
Well,
story is there.
I think also the artists will help us out with that, right? Depending on how they're doing it or what they're doing.
Mhm.
And what is the artist design fee? Like I would say that absolutely needs to be established before we send out a request for.
Oh, absolutely. So the thing that we have to figure out is what is the budget going to be for the printing and installation? Because I can't come up with the artist design fee until we know that. So just for example, right now, if we decide to do all the glass panels two-sided, that's going to be upwards of $13,000 to $14,000, and our budget's $15,000. So I think we can pretty much assume we can't do 6 bus shelters,
Right.
which was agreed to months ago, and do all the glass panels both sides. So we have to have some parameters.
Yeah, because I mean, you're now getting into that range of talking pretty big chunk of budget for it.
Right, so what we need to probably do is decide what the artist design fee is gonna be, and then figure out, I don't know which one you decide first, but.
Well, you have a strong policy of wanting to pay the artist. I think we pay the artist and figure out what their time is worth, how many sides of it, right, go from there.
Yeah.
Because this is a much greater number than we'd actually talked about.
Well,
And depending
we
on the
have
artist that does
15,000.
it, there are artists that can do
It's
something
up
that
potentially-
could also maybe not, like she was saying, if
Potentially,
it's
you're
a
talking
combination
almost
of.
$30,000.
I mean, it wouldn't be as expensive
For all
to
of
do
us.
double.
But you have to
stairs.
remember when we started this, we were doing utility boxes.
Right,
And
and
it
it
was
went to bus
$400 a
stop.
rock.
Right.
And that was relatively inexpensive. And I think if you walked out today and talked to the sign company, it's still gonna be $400 to
Right.
do a utility box. These are much bigger and much more complicated to figure out. And so that's why it's jumped up so much.
Which is fine, it's just that when you're looking at the consideration of doing it and how many and how well, then the budget comes into play.
Yeah, I think there
So-
are still some questions that need to be answered before we can send out an RFP. I don't think personally, I don't feel like we're ready to just pull the trigger on it.
Yeah, I think that question needs to be answered. If this is important to have a story, then don't we have to have the whole story? You know, rather than a couple of shelters one year, a couple of shelters another year, and by the third year, you're having to redo the first ones?
It
It's
might
like-
actually work out that way. I don't see a problem with that, because then you're refreshing them, you know, too.
And you also want the artist to be involved in the story making, you know. The artists, usually what they would do is they will come, they will listen to the people who know the story and become inspired by it, and then pull images and then start the design of it from there.
So, and maybe I'm reading this wrong, but you're only paying the artist $250?
That's just to decide who is going to be the artist for the project.
Okay.
So it's a proposal fee.
It's a proposal
So
fee. And then that's where you're saying you need to start with how much money you're going to pay the artist.
To do
work
the
backwards.
actual
To do the
work once they're
work,
selected.
and then work backwards.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you could say, we want an artist to do 2 panels front and back. And figure that, you know, we could decide that we, you know, 2 panels front and back, and then that helps decide the artist's fee.
Okay, because that's why this line is completely blank, because you don't know if it's 1,000 for the artist or 20,000 for the artist.
Right, and then, you know, the artist fee, you could look at it as potentially an hourly rate. So how long is it gonna take an artist to design 4 panels?
A little long time.
And what would their hourly rate be so that they're, you know, making a decent wage, they're not getting gouged, you know, that kind of thing. So, I don't know the answer to that
So
until.
are we talking $1,000 or $20,000?
Well, I think it's potential, if we are just doing, let's just say the 4 back panels, I could conceivably say we could pay them $500 to $750 per bus shelter. But I also don't know what caliber of artists would be interested in
Well, sure.
that price point.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's kind of like, it's just an attempt here, like we're testing the market.
Should we try to reach out to artists who have already done bus stops and like ask like what they did, maybe how much it costs or how much they got paid for
Yes, we could
it?
do that, and I have some information, just for example, I did a project in Lakewood where we had an artist do 10 totems, and they were 4-sided totems, and they were 1 foot wide by 6 feet tall, and she did the graphic design for these 10 totems. So each totem had 4 sides that were different designs.
Oh,
And we paid her $500 for each totem.
That doesn't surprise me, because even if looking up landscape totems, they're like,
Well, it was just the graphic design.
Right,
So
but I
she did
mean-
the graphic design, handed it
Yeah.
off to the printer.
And personally, I'd like the text in here to be a little bit tighter about the digital format. Like if they supply the wrong format to the designer, to the printer, they need to fix it, and it can't be part of
Well,
their fee or.
and that's what we
you know.
would put in their contract. So once you
Okay.
select the artist.
Oh, there is a contract?
Yeah, so in the RFQ, I would ask them, what programs are you familiar with and what kind of files can you provide us with?
oh,
And that would be one of the qualifications for getting the job. Like if someone says they only work in PowerPoint or something, like they're obviously not going to get the job, right? So that information is really important.
Okay, so there's an opportunity to get deeper in and make sure that they are truly qualified. to
Yes,
provide
for sure.
this.
And so we're opening this up to anybody within the U.S. is what it looks like.
Right, and so that's one of the questions I have for you guys is, did you want a regional or geographical requirement?
I think not.
You don't?
Well,
I do.
I
mean,
think
there
it should be.
But then we really like limit to the artists, or, I mean, we limit you mean to local, like to Colorado, or
We
what?
could limit it there, but I was thinking more along the lines of maybe Denver North.
I just don't know how many people do bus stops either.
Yeah, widen
What a
the
niche.
net here, yeah. Yeah.
I feel like it's such a specialty, like
Yeah.
not a lot of artists work on glass, do they? Like, is that a big pool?
It's not necessarily glass that they have to know how to work on. They just
It's
need
just
to know how
large
to do
format.
large
To
format
design it,
graphic
and then
design,
is
yeah.
the
I
printer,
would say
if they do that.
Colorado.
Yeah,
is what
I
we
would
get.
think Colorado, yeah.
Or maybe
Wait, is that
smaller
even big enough? If you use the state of Colorado?
Sure.
Is that big enough?
Yeah,
Okay.
we have, you know,
Okay.
one of the qualifications is to be a graphic designer or other visual
Okay.
artist. And so I think that opens it up to a lot of people.
Okay.
And there are other routes besides printing, from what I've seen, on to glass, which could be cool. So it's not like if that could also be an option.
I don't know that it would be because we want to use images. You guys determined that you wanted to use images from the book.
So that,
So there
could
would
only
be
be
no other
printing with
option
it.
but printing it
oh,
out.
okay.
Okay, are we
But they couldn't
providing
like
them
create,
with a book?
like
or
what
do
if they
have
wanted to
get the
draw
book?
the whole, I don't know.
I feel like it has to go back to subcommittee and talk about some of the more details of this.
Yeah, well, I think we had like other options was the thing, and like, I think some of them were possibly, like, they would work with the images and then put something together and not just like or they could do that too, but we wanted to see like
But it's
different
still
things.
digital. Typically, it's a digital file that has to get given to the printer.
Unless they, I don't know how, well, I guess there's film, I haven't read about all the different ways, but there are different ways that people are doing, I just don't know what they're doing. I don't know.
Well, you all have decided, and it can change, but the decision was to do vinyl on printed on vinyl.
Oh, okay.
So that's the direction we're going. If the subcommittee wants to change that recommendation to something else, that's fine too.
Okay, no, I didn't know that.
So that's what's listed in the RFQ, is that it's a print on vinyl.
Oh, okay.
That a local vendor will do and install.
And that's where the 1,200 to 2,200 comes into play, depending on how many panels in front and back.
Right, and that's what I think we need to, so the
Okay, so if you
subcommittee
look
could
at this-
I think
figure
that cuts
out,
out a lot of the ones that we showed then.
figure out how many panels, what we want to pay the artist, and, what was the third thing we were just talking about?
Geography? No, we already decided.
No, we did
geography.
that, that was
Yeah.
fine.
We're gonna say
Third.
Colorado.
Sorry, did you say that side?
Number of sides, number of
Which
panels.
sides,
Which
which
sides,
sides
yeah.
and which panels, figure that out.
If I'm not mistaken, I think there are a couple of bus shelters that have 3 panels. They look smaller than, say, the ones that are out here.
They're all the same.
Are they all the
Yeah,
same?
there's
Okay.
12 of them, and there, 2 are out here,
Yeah.
and the rest are along Rock Creek.
Yeah. Okay, I was thinking that I had seen some that looked smaller.
So the subcommittee needs to meet again, decide the number of sides, the number of panels, and that'll be based on the budget. And then also, we could do some research on the artists.
Yeah,
Design.
and maybe there's something incredibly cool that's not vinyl. You could always bring that back to the committee. But the vinyl is long-standing. I mean, if you go out there and look at that bus shelter, I mean,
Unless people peel it off, that's the only problem.
well, they could peel paint off or whatever application
Yeah.
else you're talking about. I mean,
I think it was peeling a bit when I saw
do
it.
anything.
Yeah,
People.
Who are these people?
Okay, we're going to meet again. I'm gone the 30th through the 11th.
Okay, so you're back, okay, after November 11th, right?
Yeah.
And is Claire gone too, or? We don't know.
I don't know when she'll be back.
Okay, I'll send out an email.
So the installation is planned for May, is that what I'm looking at? Is that-
Yeah, this is just a tentative time.
Oh, so that's not real?
Yeah, Claire just asked me what is even conceivable, so I developed this timeline. So if we were to get the RFP out in November, the first week in November, we could do, a May installation.
Okay.
Well, since we won't be able to get together again before the 1st of November, we may have to do this online.
Yeah,
That's fine.
in order to meet the deadline of trying to do it the first week of November to get.
You could also push it out a little bit, and it could still get installed in May, I imagine.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, look for an email about filling out the survey again. If we filled it out tonight, do we need to fill it out again?
Because our name won't be on the one that we did tonight.
We can ask him, I guess.
I mean, I
You
submitted
can
mine.
email me and tell me if you did submit it tonight, or you can just tell me now and I'll.
I did.
I submitted it.
I submitted. Just that time.
I was waiting for that, yeah.
And Claire, since Claire wasn't here.
Oh, yeah.
Claire wasn't here, and I don't think
And
Kevin
Kevin's
Ryan's went
in
through
either.
it.
Yeah, Kevin's in there.
So the last thing is, Dina sent out an email a long time ago. I was the only one that responded to attending the economic development roundtable discussion about the potential uses for Colton. And then they've set the date and the time, which is Monday at 1, which is exactly when I can't be there. So
I
I'm
don't
hoping
think I
that some
saw
of
that.
you
I don't know either, I'll just send them an
It's Monday.
So it's the 28th?
at Town Hall, yeah.
Wait,
28th.
let's start over again. Yeah, economic development of Colton.
Better City is the economic development company that is helping determine
Right.
the potential uses for the Colton, the Land Rover property.
Oh,
And so they've invited the CAPS committee, different committees, to attend. And I responded that I wanted to, but they've set the date for Monday at 1. So if any of
This
you are
Monday?
available Monday at 1, to come here, right? Just to be part of the discussion for the potential uses of the property.
and
Next
will
Monday,
they
you
have
said.
the 8 architect RFPs by then?
Better City's not involved in that.
Okay, but I didn't know if they were combining them.
No,
Okay.
so Monday night, just FYI, the board is reviewing the contract for the architect they'd like to select.
Okay,
Yeah,
because,
so if you want to see that, it's already online, you can see that.
Oh, we can
Contract.
see the-
I don't know if there's no designs or anything to see.
No.
There's no proposals, it's just the.
It's just
the
concept.
contract.
oh, just a contract.
Did they ask for, is there a limit to who could go?
No.
Oh, okay, so I would love to
Yeah, I would like to go Monday at 1 o'clock.
hear. Thank you for
Bringing that up,
I
yeah.
forgot about
Yeah, I'll
it.
try
Because,
Debbie?
yes, if, since we're hoping that part of that will be like the library annex.
Exactly.
I mean, there's a lot of spaces in there that could be linked with
How do you pick an
cultural
architect before
arts.
you decide what the use is
I
going to
don't know, that's a weird thing.
Well, it's not that unusual, just because now the architects can be involved in community input.
be? Oh.
Yeah, so they want to be involved.
But
in
there's
Thank you
something
guys
about
for your
8 different
questions.
architects, though.
that. Yeah,
All right.
they reviewed all 8 and they selected all.
I'm going to adjourn
Okay.
so that people
All
can
right.
leave. Thank you all, thank you Bus Shelter folks, it's really appreciate your hard work.
Yeah,
There's
sure.
a space that's similar to Rosetta Hall. Did I just send you?
Not that.
Oh, wait.
It is so cool. It's called the Stanley.
Oh, yeah, the Stanley Marketplace.
I just went there last weekend.
Isn't it
It is
cool?
so cool. Oh my gosh.
I have a group of my neighbors who are kind of like foodies type thing, which Mike and I are not, and they're just kind of like pulling us along to these random places. And I'm like,
But
huh.
that space is so
Yeah.
cool. It's so
Well,
integrated.
Go to the Rosetta Hall on Pearl Street in Boulder.
For
It's
food.
West Boulder, for
Okay.
food.
'Cause this is,
It's
it
like
wasn't
Stanley
just
Market.
food there. Is it? Interesting.
Is this near the Rockies?
No, Stanley Market.
It's near, it's in
It's in
Stapleton,
Stapleton.
near the old airport.
Right.